I have a new girlfriend and I'm moving in with her. I'm getting a divorce, and you need to move back to your parents' place. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't need you anymore. If you want to be a breadwinner or a housekeeper, you can stay with my parents, Julian. My in-laws and husband laugh at me, and they're terrible people. But this is better for me, so you all need to leave. My name is Julianne. I'm 35 years old and work in an office. I've spent my whole life working hard. After college, I started at a big company and worked there for 13 years. I earned promotions, and now, at a young age, I'm a department manager. I have a great boss and a talented team. My work life is great, but my personal life is not. When I was a student, I had a boyfriend, but none after I started working. Concerned about me, a friend threw a dinner party, and that's where I met Jake. He was kind, had a great smile, and was easy to talk to. Since we were the same age, we had a lot in common and enjoyed each other's company. We became friends, exchanged contact information, and started having meals together. Eventually, Jake told me he had feelings for me, and we began dating. We got along really well. Jake proposed, and we got married. I was thrilled to marry the man I loved. Shortly after, I visited his parents. They were very welcoming and kind. Julian, it's wonderful to meet you. We can't believe someone as beautiful as you is marrying Jake, they said, and they were in tears. We're so proud of our son for finding such a good partner. Mom and Dad, stop it. You're making Julianne nervous. Oh, if you really feel that way, you can say it. Yes, it's a compliment, so it's fine. Jake's parents were very friendly and easy to talk to, just like him. Julianne works for a big company, right? Oh, that's great. It's impressive to see a woman who works hard. Are you going to quit your job after you get married? No, I plan to keep working. Well, you have a good job at a good company. That's great. I felt relieved. I had heard from friends that their mothers-in-law often told them to quit their jobs because it was a wife's role to support her husband. So I was happy to see that my future mother-in-law was supportive. After meeting my parents, we got married. I was thrilled about starting our new life together. My husband moved into the house I was living in, and we began our life as newlyweds. I was very happy to be with him all the time and to come home to him after work. 8 months into our marriage, my husband told me he wanted to talk about something. If you don't mind, I'd like us to live with my parents. What do you mean, live together? Yes, they're getting older, and I'm worried about them. I understand how you feel. My parents are about the same age, but my brother and his wife live with them, so I don't have to worry. However, since you're an only child, it makes sense that you're concerned about your parents. Does this mean we'll be living with your parents? Yes, that's right. But do they have a room for us? They use every room for various things. Well, if you're open to it, I think it would be a good idea to renovate my parents' house and turn it into a 2-family home. 2 families? Yes. If we do that, it will be much cheaper than buying a new house. We can have a nice, spacious place while still keeping our privacy. I think that's a great idea. My in-laws are kind, and having separate spaces will make things less stressful. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. My parents will be thrilled. I was happy to see how pleased my husband was. When my in-laws visited us later, they were very thankful. With such a kind and cheerful family, I felt like managing 2 households wouldn't be so bad. Soon after, my husband and I talked about remodeling his parents' house. The cost would be about $200,000. During our discussion, my husband made a surprising request. Actually, I have a favor to ask. Could you cover the cost of the remodeling? What do you mean, the full amount? Yes. Why? My husband looked very uncomfortable. Actually, we're in debt. I was shocked. Neither he nor his parents had mentioned this when we were dating or when we got married. How much debt do they have? About $250,000. What? I thought it would be a few tens of thousands, but I'm stunned by the amount. I ended up shouting in surprise. It wasn't just a small issue, it was growing and seemed unmanageable. Even if I wanted to help pay it off, it felt impossible. My parents are living on a pension, and the debt was becoming overwhelming. I see, I said, trying to hide my shock and frustration. I had no idea my in-laws were in such financial trouble. Julian, I need a favor. Could you help me pay off my parents' debt? They can't manage it anymore, and my salary isn't enough either. Then isn't it going to be hard to renovate the house and live together as 2 families? No, it's important, so let's go ahead with the plan. You've asked me to cover the cost of the remodeling and your parents' debt. That's $250,000. I know it's a lot to ask, but I want to build a life with you and take care of my parents. I love both them and you. I'm sorry if this seems greedy, but if you really love me, please help. I promise to pay you back little by little. I was very upset. My husband and his parents had no one else to turn to but me. I knew he loved me, but I felt misled. It felt like love had blinded me. Okay, I'll pay for it. I agreed. My husband said, "Thank you so much," and shook my hand. He told his parents, who later came to our house to apologize. My mother-in-law even cried tears of joy. I have to do my best from now on, I thought. I was determined to take on my in-laws' debt. Although I had some savings, I was worried about paying it all at once, so I decided to pay $60,000 upfront and the rest in installments. We all got together to discuss the repayment plan. I explained my plan for installments, and they agreed to it. "Why don't you transfer the money directly to the debt repayment account? We're not very good at handling money, and I'm worried about transferring a large amount," my husband said. My in-laws agreed. It would be complicated for me to transfer the money to their account, and then for them to move it to the repayment account. Since it was a large amount, I didn't want it to get lost, so I agreed to transfer it directly. Once we settled the details, my in-laws looked very relieved. Now we don't have to worry about the monthly debt collection. It's been really scary. Dad and Mom, you should thank Julianne properly. Words can't express how grateful we are. Thank you so much. We're so glad Julianne is our daughter-in-law. No, I said. I was happy that my in-laws were relieved, but I felt a bit uncomfortable. I worried that they might see me just as a source of money. Despite this, I wanted to support my husband's family. With that in mind, I started making the payments, and we remodeled the house to create a two-family home. We moved into our new spacious home. My in-laws were very happy, and my husband was thrilled with the new place. I enjoyed cooking in the new kitchen and was glad we did the remodeling. It was more convenient and closer to work, which shortened my commute and gave me more free time that I could use for studying. I worked hard every day to pay off the debt. However, something troubled me. My husband did not help with the debt payments at all. He had promised to help, but he never contributed from his paycheck. When I asked him about it, he said his salary wasn't enough. I asked to see his pay stubs to understand his earnings, but he refused, so I had no idea how much he was making. I worked hard for about a year to pay off the debt. One day my in-laws asked how much was left to repay. "It's been a year, so you haven't paid off much yet, right?" "Well, we've paid back about $60,000 this year, so there's roughly $180,000 remaining," I replied. My in-laws were shocked. "What? You've paid back that much, Julian? That's incredible. At this rate, you'll finish paying off the loan in about 5 years if you keep working hard. I'm hopeful we can pay it off," they said. "Thank you so much," my in-laws said, crying with happiness. Seeing them so joyful made all the hard work feel worthwhile. A few days later, I ran into an unexpected situation. I had to work late, so I told my husband I'd be home late. However, the work went smoothly, and we finished on time. I rushed home, planning to make dinner for him. When I opened the front door, I noticed my in-laws' shoes. "Oh, my in-laws are here," I thought. I walked toward the living room and heard them talking with my husband. "You made a smart choice marrying that woman, didn't you, Jake? You did well. I can't believe you got a woman with that much money." "When I found out she works for a big company, I made sure to win her over," said my mother-in-law. "You should be more grateful," my husband replied. "Oh my, you're part of the reason we're in debt," my in-laws said. "What? But I owe the least," my husband responded. "What are you talking about? How much did you spend on horse racing? Your gambling is terrible." "I win a jackpot once in a while, so sometimes we were actually ahead." "How can you be ahead when you owed $250,000? But at this rate, we'll be able to get out of debt and be back on track." "That's great, and she even remodeled our house. I got a really good wife." "Well, I'm going to dump her after she pays off the debt," my husband said. My husband and in-laws laughed. I was so shocked that I couldn't move from the front door for a while. After I calmed down a bit, I made a loud noise locking the door and said, "I'm home." When I went into the living room, my in-laws and husband greeted me with smiles. "Oh, Julian, welcome home. Great job, great job. We're heading back to our room now. Let's have dinner together soon." Their gentle smiles felt frightening after hearing their earlier conversation. I was stunned to see my husband pretending to be a good husband with a smile. I questioned why I had been working so hard to pay off their debt. "Didn't you say you had to work late today?" "Yes, but I finished early so I came home to cook dinner." I tried my best to stay calm until dinner so my husband wouldn't suspect anything. Later, when my husband was taking a bath, I stayed in my room and cried alone. I cried so hard that it made me want to get back at my husband and in-laws. From that point on, I acted quickly. I began preparing for a divorce and made plans for what to do afterward. About 5 months passed. I pretended to be happy and told my husband that I had paid off my in-laws' debt. My husband's eyes widened. "What? You paid off the debt? That $250,000? It was supposed to take about 5 years. Actually, I had quite a bit saved up. I was hesitant to use it all at once, so I started paying a little from my salary and savings. But since we were already under $200,000, I thought it would be better to clear the debt all at once. I see, he said. Do you mind if I show you? I asked, presenting the bank book. Oh, it's true, he said. $180,000 had been paid all at once. My husband tried to hide his excitement, but I could see he was eager to leave. Wow, Julian, thank you. My parents are going to be thrilled, he said. He put his hands on his face, pretending to cry, but I knew it was just an act. Shortly after, my in-laws came over to thank me. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I met Julian. She's truly a blessing. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have been happy to hear their thanks. But knowing what they were really like, I only acted nice because I was preparing for my plan. A few days later, my husband asked to speak with me. He looked very serious. What's going on? I asked. I'm sorry, Julianne, but you need to leave me. What do you mean? I acted surprised on purpose. I have a new girlfriend. I'm moving in with her, so I'm divorcing you. You'll have to go live with my parents. I was shocked by Jake's sudden announcement. I had anticipated he would leave me once the debt was paid, as I'd overheard their conversation, but I didn't expect him to be so upfront about his infidelity. What do you mean, send me to his parents' place? I asked. I don't really understand what you mean, I said. My husband's mood turned sour. You're not getting it at all. I don't need you anymore, but if you want to stay as a housekeeper or breadwinner, I can keep you here. Just then, the front door opened, and my in-laws came in. Jake, did you finally tell her? Yeah, I told her. I wish I could have seen her reaction. If you agree to do the chores for us, you can come live at our house. Of course, we'll charge you rent. My in-laws and husband laughed at me. I felt like they were the worst people ever. All of you need to leave, I said. My in-laws rolled their eyes. What are you talking about? Have you forgotten? I can easily pay for the renovation myself. You changed the name of the house to mine, so I have the rights to decide who lives here and who doesn't. My in-laws' faces turned pale when they remembered the house title. I was utterly dumbfounded. I'm sorry, but you can't live here anymore. If we get divorced, we'll be strangers, I said. My in-laws began to understand the seriousness of the situation, but my husband, not wanting to be outdone, shot back, but you paid off our debt in full. You're the one who lost money. If we didn't have the debt, we could have afforded a new place to live. That's true. Thank you for letting us live in a nice house while you paid off our debts, my in-laws and husband said. I'm sorry, but I didn't pay off the remaining $180,000 debt, I said. What? No, but there was money missing from your bank book. That was just a separate account I set up to move money around. The debt is still $180,000. I haven't had the collections come yet because I've been paying large amounts consistently. But now the bills will come, so you're responsible for paying the rest. My husband and in-laws were stunned. I then warned them, Jake, you confessed to having an affair, so you'll need to pay. I'll also charge your partner for the affair. Oh no, she's with me because she thought I had money in a house. If I have to pay alimony, she'll leave me. I don't care about that. No, please don't leave us, my husband begged. My husband was scared of losing his lover and my in-laws were scared of losing me. They were truly selfish. I have nothing to do with you people anymore, no matter what you say. I've also put this house on the market. You'll be responsible for paying the $120,000 debt I covered on your behalf through my lawyer. My in-laws were stunned, realizing they were losing everything. I demanded a divorce and alimony from my husband through my lawyer, as well as alimony from his affair partner, and $120,000 from my in-laws for what I had paid. The renovated house sold for about $400,000. It was in a great location, and a family looking for a duplex bought it at a good price. I had to cover $320,000, which included the $120,000 debt and $200,000 for the renovation. However, I ended up with $80,000 profit from the sale. Additionally, I received alimony from my ex-husband and his affair partner, which greatly improved my financial situation. I also got $120,000 from my ex-in-laws. Overall, I came out ahead. I felt this was fair because the damage I endured was significant enough to make me distrustful of others. I initially had savings from learning how to invest with the goal of paying off my in-laws' debts quickly. With substantial savings to start, I invested tens of thousands of dollars, and my assets grew significantly in about a year. Additionally, I received a raise at work, increasing my earnings. Thanks to my savings and investments, I was able to take these drastic steps. My former in-laws ended up back in debt and lost their house, but they brought it upon themselves by deceiving me. People who cheat others should face the consequences. This experience taught me to be more cautious and develop better judgment about people. Going forward, I'm focusing on saving and growing my assets to ensure a comfortable retirement. I want to create happy memories with people I can truly trust. To start, I improved my financial knowledge by taking courses and reading books on investing and personal finance. This helped me make informed decisions about where to invest my money. Over time, I diversified my investments across various asset classes like stocks, bonds, and real estate, which helped my wealth grow steadily and securely. Additionally, I seized opportunities to advance my career. I pursued extra training and certifications in my field, which led to a significant promotion and raise. This increased income allowed me to save and invest more aggressively. I remained focused on my long-term goals, aiming to retire comfortably and enjoy my later years without financial stress. I also wanted to be able to help loved ones if needed. This vision kept me motivated and disciplined. Eventually, my efforts paid off. I bought a beautiful home in a great neighborhood, traveled to places I had always dreamed of, and built strong relationships with friends and family who genuinely cared about me. These connections brought me joy and fulfillment. Looking back, I realized that the challenges I faced with my ex-husband and in-laws taught me valuable lessons. They pushed me to become more self-reliant and financially savvy and helped me understand the importance of surrounding myself with trustworthy and supportive people. In conclusion, I turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth. By focusing on my financial health and personal development, I created a better future for myself. I hope my story inspires others to take control of their lives and make positive changes. What did you think of the story? Please subscribe to our channel and see you in the next video.
I never thought I'd find something that would change my life while cleaning out Grandpa's old study. But there it was, a letter that would tear my family apart. My name is Callie, and until last week, I was just the younger daughter trying to make her mark in our family's fashion business. The letter fell from between the pages of his favorite book on textile manufacturing. The paper was yellowed, but his handwriting was unmistakable. Bold strokes that commanded attention, just like he did in life. "Need help with those boxes?" My father called from the doorway. "I'm good," I answered, already unfolding the letter with trembling fingers. "Just found something interesting." The first line made my heart stop. "My dearest Callie, if you're reading this, I've been gone for some time, and certain truths need to come to light." I sank into Grandpa's old leather chair, the one that still smelled faintly of his pipe tobacco. The words blurred as I read about his vision for the company's future and his explicit wish for me to inherit a controlling share of Winslow Designs. "You've got your mother's eye for fashion and your father's business sense," he'd written. "But more importantly, you understand what this company means to the people who work here." Renee sees numbers. "You see, family." My half-sister Renee had been running the company since Grandpa died 3 years ago. She'd made it clear that my role was strictly limited to design work, nothing more. Now I understood why she'd been so adamant about keeping me away from the business side. "Callie." My mother's voice made me jump. She stood in the doorway, elegant as always in her tailored blazer. "We're ordering lunch. Do you want anything?" I quickly folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket. "I'll be down in a minute." She lingered, studying my face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just feeling nostalgic," I lied, forcing a smile. "Found some old photos." After she left, I pulled out my phone and took pictures of the letter, my hands still shaking. Through the study's window, I could see Renee in the parking lot, pacing as she talked on her phone. She gestured sharply, her face tight with anger, a familiar sight lately. The sound of approaching footsteps made me look up. Graham from marketing stood in the doorway, his usual easy smile in place. "Your sister's on the warpath again. Something about quarterly projections. When isn't she?" I tried to sound casual, but my voice cracked slightly. He stepped into the room, lowering his voice. "Everything okay? You look like you've just discovered a family secret." If he only knew. "I'm fine," I said, standing up quickly. "Just dusty in here." Graham's eyes lingered on me for a moment too long, but he didn't push. "Well, if you need someone to talk to." "Thanks," I cut him off, perhaps too abruptly. My mind was already racing ahead, trying to process what this meant. The letter wasn't just about inheritance. It was proof that Renee had known about this all along. She must have hidden it after Grandpa died. As I watched her through the window, still on her phone, I remembered something else she'd said last week during a board meeting. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that protect the family legacy. Now I wondered exactly what she'd meant by that. The letter felt heavy in my pocket as I gathered my things to head downstairs. I had no idea how to handle this information, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same between us again. Through the window, I saw Renee end her call and look up at the study. Our eyes met briefly, and for a moment, I could have sworn she knew exactly what I'd found. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The game was about to begin, whether I was ready or not. I spent 3 days wrestling with what to do about Grandpa's letter before finally working up the courage to show it to my mother. The family conference room felt smaller than usual as I watched her read it, her perfectly manicured fingers gripping the paper tighter with each line. "Where did you find this?" she asked, her voice unnaturally calm. "In Grandpa's old study, while we were clearing it out." I fidgeted with my watch, a nervous habit I thought I'd broken years ago. "Mom, did you know about this?" Before she could answer, the door swung open. Renee strode in, followed by our father. Perfect timing as always. "Know about what?" Renee asked, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She froze when she saw the letter in Mom's hands. "Family meeting time, I guess," Dad said, closing the door behind him. He must have noticed the tension because he stayed standing, one hand on the back of Mom's chair. Mom handed the letter to Renee, who barely glanced at it before tossing it onto the conference table. "Oh, this old thing? I found it years ago. It's not legally binding." "You knew about it?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "And you didn't think to mention it?" "It was written when you were barely out of college, Callie. Grandpa was getting sentimental in his old age." Renee's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Besides, the board already approved the current leadership structure." "The board that you personally selected?" I couldn't help myself. Years of being sidelined bubbled to the surface. "Girls," Mom interrupted, but her voice lacked its usual authority. She looked tired, older somehow. Dad cleared his throat. "Maybe we should discuss this with the company lawyers." "There's nothing to discuss," Renee said, checking her phone. "We have more pressing matters. The show contract needs attention, and our Q3 projections." "Stop deflecting," I cut in. "This isn't about contracts or projections. This is about you hiding Grandpa's wishes." Renee's phone clattered onto the table. "His wishes? You want to talk about wishes? I've spent the last decade building this company while you were off finding yourself at design school." "That's not fair," Dad started, but Renee wasn't finished. "Life isn't fair, Dad. I've earned my position. Every late night, every difficult decision, every sacrifice, that's what keeps this company running. Not some sentimental letter." Mom stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Enough. Both of you." She turned to me, her expression softening. "Callie, your grandfather loved you, but Renee's right. The company's current structure is legally established." The betrayal stung worse than I expected. "So we're just going to ignore his wishes?" "We're going to do what's best for the company," Renee said, her composure returning. "Speaking of which, I need to review your latest designs. The board has concerns about the direction of the new collection." I felt the blood drain from my face. My designs were the one thing I thought were safe from her interference. "I haven't heard any concerns," Dad said, frowning. "It's a recent development." Renee gathered her things. "We'll discuss it in tomorrow's meeting. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have calls to make." As she left, I caught a glimpse of Graham through the glass walls, watching our family drama unfold. He quickly looked away, but not before I saw the concern on his face. Mom touched my arm. "Callie, honey, don't." I pulled away, gathering the letter from the table. "I need some air." Outside the conference room, I heard Renee's voice from her office. "Yes, everything's under control. The situation has been handled." I paused, wondering who she was talking to. Through the crack in her door, I could see her pacing, phone pressed to her ear. "No, there won't be any changes to our arrangement." "I'll make sure of it." "What arrangement? And with whom?" As I walked away, I realized something. Renee wasn't just protecting her position. She was hiding something bigger, something that made her willing to bury Grandpa's letter. And I was going to find out what it was, even if it meant risking everything I had left in this family. I wasn't supposed to be in the office that late, but I'd fallen behind on my designs after the family meeting drama. The empty building felt different at night. Quieter, but somehow more alive with secrets. That's when I heard voices from the conference room. "The intellectual property transfer needs to happen before the end of the quarter." Renee's voice, sharp and clear. "Monarch Fashions is getting impatient." I froze outside the door. Monarch Fashions was our biggest competitor. The board won't approve this, a man's voice responded. And your sister's designs are a significant part of the portfolio. My sister won't be an issue. Renee's tone made my blood run cold. Once the deal goes through, she'll have no choice but to accept it. My hand flew to my mouth to stifle a gasp. The design review meeting tomorrow, it wasn't about quality concerns. She was planning to sell my work to our competitors. Someone's here. The man's voice dropped to a whisper. I ducked into the nearby supply closet, heart pounding. Footsteps passed by, then faded. When I finally emerged, shaking, I bumped straight into Graham. Jesus! I yelped, dropping my phone. Sorry. He caught it before it hit the ground. I thought I was the only one still here. His eyes narrowed. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I grabbed his arm. We need to talk. Not here. 20 minutes later, we sat in a quiet corner of a nearby bar. I told him everything, the letter, the family meeting, and what I'd just overheard. Graham ran a hand through his hair. That's corporate espionage. It's illegal. It's worse than that. I pulled out my phone, showing him photos of my latest designs. These aren't just clothes. They're an entirely new manufacturing process. More sustainable, more efficient. It could revolutionize the industry and make Monarch fashions a fortune. Graham leaned back, whistling low. No wonder they're interested. I need proof. I wrapped my hands around my untouched beer, something concrete to show my parents. Graham was quiet for a moment. I might be able to help. Marketing gets copied on most executive communications. Give me a day or two. Why would you risk helping me? His eyes met mine. Because I've watched you pour your heart into this company while your sister treats it like a personal piggy bank. And maybe because he stopped, cleared his throat. Because it's the right thing to do. My phone buzzed, a text from Renee. Design review moved to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. She's moving fast, Graham muttered, reading over my shoulder. She knows I heard something. I stood up, suddenly feeling exposed. I need to get home. Back up my files before. Too late. Graham held up his phone, showing an internal IT notification. System maintenance tonight. All servers down for routine updates. She's deleting my work. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. Everything I've done for the past year. Not everything. Graham pulled out a USB drive. I backed up the design server last week for the marketing presentations. It's not current, but I hugged him before he could finish, surprising us both. When I pulled back, his face was flushed. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet. He glanced at his phone again. The real question is, what are you going to do tomorrow morning? I thought about Grandpa's letter, about all the years of being pushed aside, about Renee's voice saying, my sister won't be an issue. I'm going to that meeting, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. But first, I need to make a call. To who? Martha Jenkins, our former head accountant. She left suddenly last year after a fight with Renee. I think it's time I found out why. As I left the bar, another text came through. This one from an unknown number. Meet me tomorrow, 7 a.m., Carter's Diner. I have something you need to see. Martha. The game wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about survival, and I was done playing by Renee's rules. Carter's Diner looked exactly like the kind of place where secrets get shared over lukewarm coffee. Martha Jenkins sat in a corner booth, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, fingers drumming nervously on a thick manila envelope. You look just like your grandfather, she said as I slid into the seat across from her. He had that same look when something wasn't right. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Graham. Meeting delayed to 9 a.m. Renee called emergency board session first. Martha noticed my expression. Bad news. Just buying us some time. I gestured to the envelope. What did you find? She slid it across the table. Financial records from the last 18 months. Renee's been moving money through shell companies. At first, I thought it was just creative accounting, but then I found this. The documents showed a complex web of transactions, all leading to one destination, Monarch Fashions. She's been selling them information for over a year, Martha continued, her voice dropping. Design specifications, manufacturing processes, supplier contracts. But that's not the worst part. My coffee grew cold as Martha explained how Renee had been systematically undermining our company's value, making it ripe for a hostile takeover. My designs weren't just being sold, they were being used as leverage. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Martha's eyes dropped to her coffee. She threatened to expose some personal matters. My grandson's medical bills, some loans I took from the company. I'm not proud of staying quiet. My phone buzzed again. Graham, board meeting getting heated. Your mother looks furious. Where are you? I have to go. I gathered the documents, but Martha caught my wrist. There's something else. She pulled out one last paper. Your grandfather's original will. The one Renee replaced after he died. My hands shook as I read it. The letter I'd found wasn't just a wish. It was legally binding. Renee had committed fraud. Why show me this now? Because yesterday, Renee started the process to dissolve the company entirely. Martha's voice cracked. Your grandfather built this company to last generations. He'd rather see it burn than become what Renee's planning. Outside the diner, Graham was waiting in his car. Your father's looking for you, he said as I got in. The board's voting on something big. I know what they're voting on. I showed him the documents. We need to make copies before. A car horn blared. Through the rearview mirror, I saw a black SUV accelerating toward us. Hold on. Graham swerved, barely avoiding the impact. The SUV scraped past us, then sped away. Was that Dash? Renee's car? I finished, my heart pounding. She must have followed me. Graham pulled into a side street, killing the engine. This isn't just business anymore, Callie. She's desperate. She should be. I pulled out my phone, dialing my father's number. It went straight to voicemail. What's your play? Graham asked softly. I stared at the documents in my lap. Proof of fraud, theft, and betrayal. Everything I needed to destroy my sister's life. But the cost. I can't let her sell the company, I said finally. But this isn't just about revenge anymore. It's about protecting what Grandpa built. What our whole family built. Even if it tears that family apart? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Renee. Last chance, little sister. Walk away now, or everyone loses everything. Attached was a photo of our mother at her desk, head in her hands, looking broken. The message was clear. This would destroy her. She's trying to manipulate you, Graham said, reading over my shoulder. I know. I took a deep breath, straightening my spine. And she's about to learn that was a mistake. As we pulled back onto the main road toward the office, I realized something. Sometimes protecting your family means fighting them. And I was done playing defense. The board meeting was in 30 minutes. It was time to show Renee exactly what kind of sister she'd created. The boardroom felt like a powder keg when Graham and I arrived. Dad was pacing by the window. Mom sat rigid in her chair, and Renee stood at the head of the table mid-presentation. The screen behind her showed graphs of declining profits, graphs I now knew were manipulated. Nice of you to join us, Renee said, her smile razor-sharp. I was just explaining why selling to Monarch Fashions is our only viable option. I dropped Martha's envelope on the table. Funny, I was about to explain why that's fraud. The room went silent. Dad stopped pacing. Mom's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. These documents, I continued, spreading them across the table, show exactly how our company's been systematically undermined for the past 18 months. Careful, Callie, Renee warned, but her composure cracked slightly. A board member picked up one of the papers. These transaction records. Are these authentic? Before Renee could respond, the boardroom door opened. Martha Jenkins walked in, followed by two men in suits. They're authentic, Martha said. And these gentlemen from the SEC would like to verify them. Renee's phone clattered to the floor. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I pulled out Grandpa's original will. Just like I understand why you replaced this after he died. Mom stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. Renee, what is she talking about? She's desperate, Renee snapped. Making wild accusations because she's jealous. Miss Caldwell, one of the SEC agents cut in. We have some questions about certain offshore accounts linked to Monarch Fashions. The next few minutes were chaos. Board members arguing, agents asking questions, Dad trying to maintain order. Through it all, I watched my sister's carefully constructed world crumble. Then I saw her hand slip into her bag. "Stop her!" Graham shouted, but it was too late. Renee pulled out a USB drive and held it up like a weapon. "You want to play hardball?" Her voice shook. "Fine. This drive contains evidence of every questionable decision this company has made for the past 30 years. Including yours, Mother." Mom went pale. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." Renee's laugh was hollow. "We all go down together. That's what family means, right?" I moved toward her slowly. "This isn't about family for you. It never was. You don't know anything about family." She jabbed the drive in my direction. "You were always the golden child, the one with natural talent. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow?" My shadow. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You've controlled everything since Grandpa died." "Because I had to." Her voice cracked. "Because if I didn't prove I was better than you, they'd all see I was nothing but a mistake." The room went deadly quiet. Mom made a small, wounded sound. "Miss Caldwell," the SEC agent said quietly, "please hand over the drive." For a moment, I saw something break in my sister's eyes. Then she straightened, smoothing her jacket with trembling hands. "You want to know the truth, little sister?" She pressed the drive into my palm. "Check the personnel files from 30 years ago. See what kind of family we really are." As the agents led her out, she paused at the door. "I never wanted to hurt you, Callie. I just couldn't let you win. Not again." The board meeting dissolved into emergency sessions. While lawyers and agents swarmed the building, I sat in Grandpa's old study, staring at the drive in my hands. "You don't have to look," Graham said softly from the doorway. "Yes, I do." I plugged in the drive. "Whatever's in here, it's part of who we are." As the files loaded, I noticed Mom standing in the hallway, watching me with tears in her eyes. She knew what I was about to find. The truth about our family was just a click away, and I wasn't sure any of us were ready for it. The personnel files from 30 years ago lay scattered across Grandpa's desk like pieces of a broken mirror, each one reflecting an ugly truth. Mom stood in the doorway, her silence heavier than any explanation could be. "You were his secretary," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Before you married Dad. Before you owned the company. Callie. And Renee." I held up the termination notice with trembling hands. "Grandpa tried to force you to get rid of her." Mom's voice cracked. "He said it would ruin the company's reputation." His reputation. The pieces clicked together like a grotesque puzzle. Renee wasn't just my half-sister. She was living proof of Grandpa's hypocrisy, of his affair with his young secretary before Mom married Dad. "So you took over the company," I continued, the truth burning in my throat. "You and Dad, you forced Grandpa out. To protect both of you." Mom stepped into the room, reaching for me, but I backed away. "Everything I did was to give you both a chance." "Stop." My hands slammed against the desk. "Just stop lying." Grandpa's letter, the will, it wasn't about me being talented. It was guilt. He was trying to make amends. A knock at the door made us both jump. Graham stood there, his face grim. "They're transferring Renee to custody. She's asking to see you, Callie." The police station's interview room was cold and sterile. Renee sat across from me, her designer suit replaced by standard-issue clothes, her makeup smeared from crying. "Now you know," she said quietly, "why I could never be good enough. You didn't have to destroy the company, didn't I?" Her laugh was bitter. "Every time I walked these halls, I saw him. In the portraits, the plaques, the legacy everyone worshipped. The man who wanted me erased." "So you decided to erase everything?" "I decided to build something of my own." She leaned forward. "Monarch offered me control of their Asian division. No family strings, no ghosts. Just merit. By stealing our designs?" "My designs. Your designs." Renee's eyes flashed. "Look at the drive again, sister dear. Look at the original sketches from Mom's early days. Your revolutionary techniques? They're all variations of her work. Work she did while carrying me, alone and scared, before your father saved her." The room spun slightly. I gripped the table's edge. "We're more alike than you think, Callie," Renee continued. "Both living in someone else's shadow. The difference is, I chose to step out of it. By committing fraud? By surviving." She stood up as the guard approached. You can keep the family legacy. I'm done pretending we were ever really family. Later, in Grandpa's study again, I found Graham reviewing the old sketches. He looked up as I entered. She was right, I said before he could speak. Everything I thought was mine, everything I was proud of, it's all built on lies. Callie. No. I started gathering the designs, my hands shaking. The company, the inheritance, all of it. It's poison. I can't. Stop. Graham caught my wrists. You're not thinking clearly, aren't I? I pulled away. My grandfather was a hypocrite who tried to erase his own daughter. My mother built her success on stolen designs. My sister's going to prison. Tell me, Graham, what part of this should I be thinking clearly about? Through the window, I could see the factory floor where generations of workers had built our family's dream. Now it all felt tainted. My phone buzzed, a message from Martha. There's something else you need to see. Something about your grandfather's final days. I almost deleted it. Almost walked away from all of it. But Renee's words echoed in my head. We're more alike than you think. Maybe that was what scared me most of all. What are you going to do? Graham asked softly. I stared at the message, feeling the weight of 3 generations of secrets pressing down on me. I'm going to find out how deep this really goes, I said. Even if it destroys what's left of us. Martha's final revelation hit like a thunderbolt in Grandpa's study. She handed me a worn leather journal, his private diary from his last months alive. He knew what Renee was planning, Martha said quietly. All of it. The Monarch deal. The company's dissolution. He knew because he'd tried the same thing 30 years ago. The diary entries detailed a failed attempt to sell the company to Monarch, back when Mom was just his secretary. He'd wanted to escape the scandal of her pregnancy with Renee. My phone buzzed, a text from Graham. Renee's being released on bail. She's heading to the office. I have to go. I clutched the journal. There's one more conversation we need to have. I found Renee in the design studio, methodically shredding sketches. Mom stood in the doorway, watching helplessly. You knew, I said, holding up the journal. You found this years ago, didn't you? Renee's hands stilled. Like grandfather, like granddaughter. Both of us trying to destroy what we couldn't control. That's not, isn't it? She turned, eyes blazing. You found his letter and immediately used it against me. Just like he tried to use Mom's pregnancy to force her out. Stop it, both of you. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. There's something you need to know. She pulled out an old envelope, yellowed with age. Your grandfather didn't write that inheritance letter to Callie. I did. The room went silent except for the hum of the shredder. What? Renee whispered. I forged it, Mom continued, because I knew what you were planning with Monarch. The same deal they offered your grandfather. The same deal that would have erased both of you from existence. My legs felt weak. Why didn't you just stop her? Because this company was built on secrets and control, Mom said. I wanted you both to choose differently. To be better than we were. Renee laughed, a hollow sound. Better? I was never even good enough. The unwanted child. The living reminder of scandal. You were everything. Mom's shout echoed off the walls. Everything I fought for. Everything I built this company to protect. Both of you were. Then why pit us against each other? I demanded. Because I was afraid. Mom's composure cracked. Afraid you'd both make the same mistakes I did. Choosing power over family. Control over love. Renee moved to the window, staring at the factory floor below. The Monarch deal isn't final yet. It doesn't matter, I said. The SEC. It matters. She turned back, her expression different somehow. Softer. Because I made the same offer to every board member Grandpa tried to sell to 30 years ago. They all kept his secret. And they'll keep ours. Understanding dawned. You weren't trying to destroy the company. I was trying to expose its foundation. She met Mom's eyes. So we could rebuild it. The right way this time. Mom stepped forward, reaching for both of us. For the first time in years, neither of us pulled away. Your grandfather's last entry, Martha said from the doorway, making us all jump. You should read it. I opened the journal to its final page. My greatest regret isn't the choices I made, but the legacy of fear I left my family. May they find the courage to choose love instead of power, truth instead of control. May they build something better than I ever could. Renee touched the page gently. We could, build something better. Together, I asked, hardly daring to hope. She smiled, a real smile this time. Well, you've got the talent, I've got the business sense, and Mom's got the original designs. Seems like a solid foundation. A new foundation, Mom corrected, squeezing our hands. Outside, the factory hummed with life, generations of work, secrets, and hope woven into its very walls. But inside this room, something else was being built. Something stronger than revenge, more powerful than control. Something like forgiveness. 6 months later, I stood in the renovated design studio, watching workers install the new sign. Winslow and Caldwell Designs. The morning sun caught the letters, casting twin shadows across the floor. Still feels strange, doesn't it? Renee appeared beside me, coffee in hand. She looked different now, softer around the edges, but somehow stronger too. Good strange, I replied, accepting the second cup she offered. The SEC investigation had ended with a settlement and restructuring rather than criminal charges. Thanks partly to Mom's influence and partly to Renee's careful documentation of the board's past indiscretions. Sometimes leverage was better than revenge. The new collection's ready, Renee said, leading me to the workroom. Mom's original designs, your modern techniques. The perfect blend of past and future. The samples hung like promises on the racks, classic silhouettes reimagined, family heritage woven into every stitch. But something else caught my eye, a framed sketch on the wall. Is that Dash? Grandpa's first design, Mom said, entering behind us. From before he owned the factory, when he was just a tailor with dreams. And demons, Renee added quietly. Like all of us. Mom touched the frame gently. But we choose what to do with them. Graham appeared in the doorway, folders in hand. Boards ready for the presentation. Actually, I said, there's something else we need to do first. Later, we stood in the factory's main floor, surrounded by our workers, the real foundation of our family's legacy. Mom took the microphone first. 30 years ago, I made choices out of fear, she began. Today, my daughters are making different choices. Better ones. Renee stepped forward next. Starting today, every employee becomes a shareholder. This company's success should benefit everyone who builds it. The announcement was met with stunned silence, then growing applause. As I watched faces light up with hope and possibility, I felt something shift inside me, the last weight of revenge lifting, replaced by something lighter. There's one more thing, I added, unveiling the plaque we'd prepared. The Martha Jenkins Training Center, offering design and business education to all employees' children. Martha, standing in the crowd, pressed a hand to her mouth. Because family, Renee continued, isn't just about blood. It's about choice. After the celebration, I found myself back in Grandpa's study. My study now, shared with Renee. The old leather chair still held traces of pipe tobacco, but new memories were layering over the old. You know, Graham said from the doorway, when I first met you, I never thought this was how things would end up. Who says this is the end? I smiled, touching the journal on my desk. No longer Grandpa's secret diary, but our family's ongoing story. With blank pages waiting to be filled. Renee appeared behind Graham. Ready for tomorrow's meeting? Monarch's CEO wants to discuss a proper partnership this time. On our terms, I nodded. On family terms, Mom corrected, joining us. As they left, I noticed something tucked into the journal, a photo I'd never seen before. Young Mom, holding baby Renee, with Grandpa standing awkwardly beside them. On the back, in his bold handwriting, some mistakes become our greatest blessings, if we're brave enough to embrace them. I added the photo to our new company timeline, right beside one taken this morning, Renee and me flanking Mom, all of us smiling real smiles. The factory hummed below. Its rhythm changed but familiar. Like our family, it was being rewoven into something new, something stronger. Not perfect, but authentic. Not flawless, but honest. Through the window, I watched our workers leaving for the day, many still discussing their new stake in the company's future. Some stopped to admire the new sign, its dual names gleaming in the setting sun. Revenge might have started the story, but love, complicated, messy, choosing to be better love, that's what would write its future chapters. And this time we'd write them together.
I never expected my life to implode on a random Tuesday afternoon. But there I was, staring at my sister-in-law Vanessa on my doorstep, her 2 kids hanging off her like Christmas ornaments, and enough luggage to suggest this wasn't just a casual visit. My name is Rachel, and until that moment, I'd managed to maintain a careful balance between my marriage and my sanity. Working as an assistant editor-in-chief meant I needed my home to be my sanctuary, a quiet place where I could decompress after wrestling with deadlines and demanding authors all day. Surprise! Vanessa chirped, her perfectly glossed lips curved into what I'd come to recognize as her "I need something" smile. The kids and I thought we'd come for a little visit. Before I could process what was happening, her son Oliver darted past me into the house, his sister Chloe following close behind. The sound of something crashing in my living room made me wince. "Oh, don't worry about that," Vanessa waved dismissively. "Kids will be kids, right?" I stood frozen in the doorway as she wheeled in 2 massive suitcases, followed by what looked like a portable wardrobe. "How long exactly are you planning to stay?" "Just until things settle down," she said vaguely, already making herself at home. "Ethan didn't tell you?" I could have sworn he said he'd handle it. My husband. Of course. Speaking of the devil, Ethan chose that moment to come home early from work, something he never did. His face lit up at the sight of his sister, and they embraced like they hadn't seen each other in years rather than the 3 weeks since our last forced family dinner. "You made it!" he exclaimed, helping bring in more bags. "Rachel, isn't this great? The house will finally feel alive." I caught the slight emphasis on "finally" and felt my stomach twist. Our house was plenty alive, with conversation, laughter, and the occasional heated debate about comma placement. Just because we didn't have children running around breaking things didn't mean we were living in a mausoleum. "Ethan," I said carefully, "can we talk for a minute?" He followed me to the kitchen, still beaming. I could hear Oliver and Chloe thundering up and down the stairs, probably marking their territory like overwrought puppies. "When were you planning to tell me about this?" "I knew you'd overthink it if I told you in advance," he said, reaching for the coffee maker. "It's just temporary. Vanessa's going through some stuff with her ex, and she needs a safe place for the kids. And our home was volunteered without any discussion? They're family, Rachel. We have 3 empty bedrooms collecting dust. What's the big deal?" Before I could respond, there was another crash upstairs, followed by giggling and what sounded suspiciously like water running. "I should check on that," Ethan said, already turning away. "Try to relax, okay? This'll be good for us." I watched him bound up the stairs, leaving me alone in my rapidly shrinking kitchen. My phone buzzed, a text from my best friend Lila. "Still on for wine night tomorrow?" I was about to reply when Vanessa swooped in, phone in hand. "Oh, Rachel, I hope you don't mind, but I invited Mom and Dad to come stay too. They're worried about the kids adjusting, and you know how Mom gets. They'll be here Thursday." She disappeared before I could respond, her voice carrying down the hallway as she coordinated with my in-laws. I gripped the kitchen counter, my knuckles white, as the reality of my situation sank in. My peaceful home was being invaded, my husband had conspired behind my back, and my mother-in-law, who'd once suggested I was too career-focused to be a proper wife, was arriving in 2 days. I picked up my phone and typed a quick response to Lila. "Make it a bottle. Maybe 2. We need to talk." Above me, something that sounded expensive shattered, followed by Ethan's laughter and his sister's theatrical apologies. But it was the sight of Vanessa's divorce papers, partially visible in her open purse on my counter, that made my blood run cold. This wasn't going to be temporary at all. The first 48 hours with my uninvited house guests felt like being trapped in a reality show I never auditioned for. I'd retreated to my home office, the only space still untouched by Hurricane Vanessa, when the smell of burning jolted me from my work. I rushed to the kitchen to find Oliver attempting to make grilled cheese with the burner on high, while Vanessa lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Oliver, step back," I said, quickly moving the smoking pan. "Where's your mom?" "Right here," Vanessa called out, not looking up. He's fine. He makes his own lunch all the time at home. Charred remains of what was once my favorite non-stick pan told a different story. I bit back a response, remembering my grandmother's advice about choosing battles wisely. Instead, I made Oliver a proper sandwich, trying not to notice how he wolfed it down like he hadn't eaten all day. "Hey, while you're in there," Vanessa piped up, "could you make me something too? I'm starving." Before I could respond, Ethan burst through the door carrying shopping bags. "Family dinner tonight," he announced. "Mom and Dad are coming early." Surprise! My stomach dropped. Early? They weren't supposed to be here until tomorrow. "Mom couldn't wait," he grinned, unpacking groceries. "And wait till you hear the best part. They're bringing Aunt Susan and Uncle Mike too." I watched as he and Vanessa high-fived like teenagers planning a party. Kitchen counter disappeared under ingredients as Ethan pulled out recipe after recipe. "Honey," I said carefully, "I have that big manuscript deadline tomorrow. Remember." "Come on, Rachel," Vanessa interjected, finally looking up from her phone. "Family comes first. You can do your little editing thing anytime." I caught Ethan nodding along with his sister and felt something crack inside me. My little editing thing pays half the mortgage on this house. "Speaking of the house," Vanessa said, her tone suddenly serious, "Mom mentioned you two might be thinking of moving to a bigger place. You know, something more family-friendly." The look that flashed across Ethan's face told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just another one of Vanessa's random comments, they'd been discussing our future without me. "I need some air," I managed, heading for the door. Ethan caught my arm. "Where are you going?" "My parents will be here in an hour. Then I'll be back in 59 minutes. I drove to Lila's house on autopilot, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. She took one look at me and poured 2 glasses of wine. "They're planning to stay permanently, aren't they?" she asked after I'd spilled everything. "Worse," I said. "I think Ethan's been planning this with them. He's never home early, never cooks, never arranges family gatherings. But suddenly he's super host. Have you checked your joint account lately?" I froze with my wine glass halfway to my lips. "Why?" "Just a hunch," Lila said carefully. "But moving to a family-friendly house takes money." I pulled out my phone, logged into our banking app, and felt the blood drain from my face. There had been several large transfers to a savings account I didn't recognize, all in the past month. "I have to go," I said, standing up so quickly I almost knocked over my wine. When I got home, the house was already full of people. Geraldine had taken over my kitchen, rearranging everything to her liking. Harold sat in my reading chair, while Vanessa's kids ran circles around the dining room table. Aunt Susan was critiquing my choice of curtains. But it was the conversation I overheard between Ethan and Vanessa in the hallway that stopped me cold. "Did you get Rachel to sign those papers yet?" Vanessa whispered. "Not yet," Ethan replied. "But Mom says once the house transfer is done, it won't matter. Rachel will have to adjust or—" He trailed off as I rounded the corner, his face freezing in that deer-in-headlights look I'd never seen before. Behind him, Vanessa smirked. "Perfect timing," she said. "Mom's just about to serve dinner. Hope you don't mind, but we had to throw out some of your old dishes to make room for hers. They were a bit dated." I smiled, a plan already forming in my mind. "No problem at all. What's family for, right?" I spent the next morning in my office, not editing manuscripts but digging through our financial records. Each discovery felt like another nail in my marriage's coffin. The papers Vanessa mentioned weren't just about a house transfer. Ethan had been systematically moving our assets around for months. My phone buzzed with another text from him. "Mom's making her famous pot roast tonight. Don't work too late." I ignored it, focusing instead on the email from our bank. The joint account I'd contributed to for years had been quietly drained, with regular transfers to an account in his name only. The final transfer had happened just days before Vanessa's arrival. A knock at my office door made me jump. It was Oliver, clutching a tablet. Aunt Rachel? Mom says I need your work password for the Wi-Fi. I blinked. The guest network password is on the fridge. No, she says she needs the other one. The one for your work computer. Course she did. I was about to refuse when I heard Vanessa's voice from the hallway. Just let him use your laptop, Rachel. Don't be difficult. I turned to find her leaning against the doorframe, that familiar smirk playing on her lips. Behind her, I could see moving boxes stacked in the hallway, boxes I hadn't noticed before. Those are new, I said carefully. Oh, those? Vanessa waved dismissively. Just some things Mom thought would look better in here. Your stuff is in the garage. My grandmother's antique mirror. My books. My life. Where's Ethan? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Meeting with the lawyer, she replied, then quickly added, about my divorce, of course. But her slight hesitation told me everything. I stood up, closing my laptop. Tell your mother I won't be home for dinner. Again? Vanessa sighed dramatically. You know, Ethan always said you were difficult about family stuff, but I didn't want to believe it. The poor guy, always having to choose between his wife and his family. I walked past her down the stairs, my mind racing. In the kitchen, Geraldine was replacing my coffee maker with her own ancient model. Oh, good, you're here, she said without looking up. Sign these consent forms for the school. We're enrolling the children next week. I picked up the papers. They weren't school forms, they were property transfer documents already bearing Ethan's signature. Where did you get these? Ethan left them for you, she replied smoothly. It's just a formality, dear. You know how these things work. But I did know how these things worked. 5 years as an editor had taught me to read the fine print. These papers would sign away my rights to the house I'd helped pay for, the house I'd helped renovate. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lila. Did you check the safety deposit box? The safety deposit box. The one where I kept my grandmother's jewelry, my emergency fund, and most importantly, the original deed to the house, the one showing my name as co-owner. I grabbed my keys, but Vanessa stepped in front of the door. Where are you going? Mom's already starting dinner. Move, I said quietly. You know, she said, not budging, Ethan was right. You really don't understand what family means. No, Vanessa. You don't understand what you've done. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd saved earlier that morning. Hello, Detective Martinez? Remember that fraud case we discussed? I'd like to move forward with the investigation. Color drained from Vanessa's face. Behind her, Geraldine dropped a plate. You wouldn't, Vanessa whispered. We're family. I smiled, feeling strangely calm. You're right. Family should look out for each other. That's why I've been recording everything since that interesting conversation I overheard last night. As if on cue, my phone pinged with an email from my lawyer, confirming receipt of all the documentation I'd sent over that morning. Now, I said, I believe you're in my way. The safety deposit box was empty. I stood in the bank vault, staring at the void where my grandmother's jewelry and emergency fund should have been. The bank manager shuffled uncomfortably behind me. The access records show your husband visited last week, he said. With proper authorization, of course. Of course. My signature, perfectly forged on the access form, stared back at me. 5 years of marriage, and I never knew Ethan could replicate my handwriting. My phone buzzed, Lila again. Rachel, where are you? Ethan's looking for you everywhere. Says it's urgent. I bet he did. I texted back. Meet me at Carlo's. Bring your laptop. Carlo's was our code for serious trouble. The little cafe had been my sanctuary during the worst times after my parents' death, and Lila knew what it meant if I wanted to meet there. When I arrived, she already had 2 coffees waiting. How bad? Everything's gone, I said, my voice hollow. The deed, the jewelry, the money, all of it. That's impossible, she frowned, opening her laptop. The deed is registered with the county. even if he took the physical copy. She trailed off, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Then she turned the screen toward me. Rachel, when did you sign this? I stared at the document. It was a transfer of deed dated 3 months ago with my signature at the bottom. Except I hadn't signed anything 3 months ago. He's been planning this since before Vanessa showed up, I whispered. There's more, Lila said quietly. Check your email. The message was from my publishing house's HR department. Someone had requested my employment records, again with my forged signature. They were building a paper trail documenting every aspect of my life they could control. My phone rang, Ethan. I let it go to voicemail. You need a lawyer, Lila said. Now. I need more than that, I replied, pulling out my own laptop. I need proof. We spent the next hour documenting everything. Bank transfers, forged signatures, suspicious timing. With each discovery, the weight in my chest grew heavier. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. Aunt Rachel, where are you? Mom's crying and Grandma says it's your fault. Before I could respond, another message came through, a photo from Vanessa. It showed my home office, completely transformed into a children's bedroom. My books were gone, my desk replaced with bunk beds. The kids love their new room, the caption read. Family dinner at 6. Don't be late. They're trying to erase me, I said, my voice cracking. Piece by piece, they're writing me out of my own life. Lila reached across the table and grabbed my hand. No, they're showing you exactly who they are. The question is, what are you going to do about it? My phone rang again. This time it was Harold, my father-in-law. I almost declined the call, but something made me answer. Rachel, he said quietly, I know what they're doing. Meet me at the park in 20 minutes. Come alone. I looked at Lila, who was already packing up her laptop. Go, she said. I'll have my phone ready if you need backup. Park was empty except for Harold, sitting on our usual bench. He looked older somehow, tired. I tried to stop them, he said as I sat down. But Geraldine, she's convinced this is what's best for everyone. Best for everyone? I echoed. They're stealing my life. No, he replied, pulling an envelope from his jacket. They're trying to steal your future. But they forgot about the past. Inside the envelope was a letter written in my grandmother's handwriting, dated just before she died. A letter I'd never seen before, addressed to my future self. How did you get this? Geraldine took it from your office, he said. She was going to destroy it, but I couldn't let that happen. Your grandmother. She knew something like this might happen. Read it. As I opened the letter, Harold stood up. Whatever you decide to do, Rachel, know that not all family is bound by blood. Sometimes the strongest bonds are the ones we choose for ourselves. He walked away, leaving me alone with my grandmother's last words and a decision that would change everything. My grandmother's letter changed everything. I sat in my car outside the house, my house, reading it for the 3rd time. Her words about protecting what's yours, not just possessions but your dignity, your self-worth, hit harder now than they would have 5 years ago. The front door opened and Ethan stepped out, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it takes, he was saying. Just make sure those accounts are locked down by morning. I watched him pace the driveway, this stranger wearing my husband's face. Through the living room window, I could see Vanessa directing movers, pointing at my remaining furniture. Geraldine stood in the kitchen, probably planning another family dinner I wouldn't attend. My phone buzzed, a text from Oliver. Mom says you're being selfish. Are you coming home? Home. The word felt hollow now. I stepped out of the car just as Ethan ended his call. His face flickered between relief and something darker when he saw me. Where have you been? He demanded. Mom's worried sick. Is she? I walked past him toward the house. Or is she worried about what I might do? He grabbed my arm. Rachel, don't start. The family's finally coming together. Why can't you just let go of me? My voice was quiet but firm. Now. Something in my tone made him release me. Inside, Vanessa was instructing the movers to take my grandmother's antique writing desk. "Stop," I said. "Oh, look who finally showed up," Vanessa smirked. "We're just making room for the kids' study area. They need it more than you do. That desk isn't yours to give away." Actually, Ethan cut in, according to the new deed. The forged deed. I turned to face him. "The one you had someone copy my signature on?" The movers paused, looking uncertain. Geraldine emerged from the kitchen, her face tight with concern. "Rachel, dear," she started, "you're clearly upset." "Clearly," I agreed, pulling out my phone. Just like the bank manager was clearly upset when I showed him the forged authorization forms. And my publishing house's legal team was clearly upset about the fraudulent records requests. Color drained from Ethan's face. "You're bluffing." I played the recording from earlier, his phone conversation about locking down accounts. Then I showed them the email from my lawyer, confirming the fraud investigation was proceeding. "Get out," Vanessa hissed. "You ungrateful." "No," I cut her off. "You get out. All of you. You have 1 hour." "This is my house," Ethan said, but his voice wavered. "Check your phone," I replied. On cue, his phone buzzed with a notification. I watched as he read the emergency injunction my lawyer had just filed, freezing all assets and preventing any further property transfers. "You can't do this," Geraldine protested. "We're family." "Family?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my ears. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't steal inheritances. Family doesn't try to erase someone from their own life. Oliver appeared at the top of the stairs, Chloe behind him. "Mom? What's happening?" Vanessa rushed to shield them as if I were the threat. "Nothing, sweetie. Your Aunt Rachel is just being dramatic." "No," I said, looking directly at the kids. "Your Aunt Rachel is finally standing up for herself. Something your mother should have taught you about." I turned to the movers. "Put everything back exactly where you found it. I'll pay you double." They nodded, already reversing course. Ethan stepped toward me, his charm sliding back into place. "Honey, let's talk about this." "The police will be here in 20 minutes, I interrupted. "They're very interested in those forged documents. Your choice if you want to be here when they arrive." The next 15 minutes were chaos, Vanessa screaming, Geraldine crying, Harold watching silently from the corner. But they left, taking their belongings with them. As Ethan walked out last, he turned back. "You'll regret this." I thought of my grandmother's letter, of her words about standing your ground. "No," I said. "For the first time in years, I don't regret anything." I closed the door on my old life and locked it. 3 days after I kicked them out, I came home to find my front door unlocked and music spilling from inside. For a moment, I thought I'd walked into the wrong house. Every surface was covered in flowers and decorations, and the air smelled of Geraldine's signature pot roast. A party was in full swing in my living room. My in-laws' entire social circle milled about, drinking wine from my grandmother's crystal glasses. Vanessa held court near the fireplace, while Oliver and Chloe ran through the crowd with plates of cake. "Rachel!" Ethan appeared at my side, all smiles and charm. "You're just in time for the announcement." "What announcement?" My voice sounded distant over the buzzing in my ears. "About the house, of course." Geraldine stepped forward, clinking her glass for attention. "Everyone, gather round." Crowd quieted, and I noticed several faces I recognized, neighbors, colleagues from Ethan's firm, even a few of my own co-workers. All watching, all waiting. "As you know," Geraldine continued, "this lovely home has been in our family for generations." That was the first lie. I'd bought it with my inheritance from my grandmother. And now, thanks to Ethan's wonderful planning, it will continue to be a true family home, with Vanessa and her children moving in permanently. Applause erupted. Someone pressed a glass of champagne into my hand. Through the crowd, I caught Harold's eye. He looked away quickly, shame written across his face. "The papers are all signed," Ethan whispered in my ear. "You might have frozen some accounts, but you forgot about the power of attorney you gave me last year when you were in the hospital. Everything's legal now." The champagne glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. The noise drew Oliver's attention, and he ran over. "Aunt Rachel, Mom says we're keeping your office as our playroom. Can we paint it?" Vanessa appeared behind him, victory gleaming in her eyes. "Of course you can, sweetie. It's your room now." I looked around at my home, my grandmother's antiques replaced with modern furniture, family photos replaced with portraits of Vanessa's children. My books nowhere in sight. "Where are my things?" My voice cracked. "In storage," Ethan said smoothly. "We'll sort through them later." Now smile, people are watching. They were. Every eye in the room seemed fixed on me, waiting for my reaction. This was their plan: back me into a corner, surround me with witnesses, force me to accept their version of events or look like the unreasonable one. My phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "Got the evidence. Police are on their way. Hold on." But before I could respond, Geraldine clinked her glass again. "And one more announcement. Ethan, would you like to share the wonderful news?" He stepped forward, that familiar, charming smile in place. "Rachel and I have decided to take a break. She'll be staying with friends while we sort things out. It's all very amicable." The room filled with sympathetic murmurs. I saw my coworkers exchange glances, probably remembering all the times I defended Ethan's behavior. "That's not true," I said, but my voice was lost in the noise. Vanessa stepped closer, speaking low enough that only I could hear. "Face it, Rachel. You lost. The house is ours legally. Your precious grandmother's things are gone. Even your colleagues think you're having a breakdown. Just walk away while you still have some dignity." I felt the walls closing in, the room spinning. Everything I'd built, everything I'd protected was being stripped away in front of an audience. Then I saw Oliver picking up one of my grandmother's crystal glasses, preparing to throw it to his sister. "Catch, Chloe." The glass arced through the air in slow motion. In that moment, I had a choice: let it shatter like everything else in my life, or finally take control. I caught the glass inches from the floor. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room, "I have an announcement of my own." The front door burst open, and Detective Martinez stepped in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. "Perfect timing," I said, meeting Ethan's shocked gaze. "Let's talk about fraud, forgery, and family, shall we?" The aftermath of the party felt like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Detective Martinez methodically collected statements while party guests fled, leaving behind half-empty glasses and whispered apologies. Ethan sat on my couch, his head in his hands, while Vanessa paced frantically, phone pressed to her ear. "Your lawyer's not picking up," she snapped at Ethan. "Fix this." I stood by my grandmother's writing desk, now back in its rightful place, as Detective Martinez laid out the evidence: forged signatures, fraudulent bank transfers, and the smoking gun emails between Ethan and a document forger, discussing payment for delicate family matters. "This is ridiculous," Geraldine interrupted. "We're protecting family assets. Rachel never understood what family means." "Family?" Harold's voice cut through the room. We all turned to see him standing in the doorway, holding a familiar wooden box. "Is this what family means?" He opened the box, revealing my grandmother's jewelry, the pieces Ethan claimed were in storage. "I found this hidden in Vanessa's guest room." "Dad," Ethan started, but Harold held up his hand. "No more lies." He placed the box on the desk beside me. "I've watched this family destroy everything good in the name of protection and togetherness. I won't stay silent anymore." Vanessa lunged for the box. "Those are mine now. The house transfer is void," Detective Martinez interjected. along with every other document Mr. Walker forged. Speaking of which, she nodded to an officer who stepped forward with handcuffs. You can't be serious, Ethan laughed, but the sound was hollow. Rachel, tell them this is just a misunderstanding. I picked up my grandmother's sapphire ring, the one she'd promised would be my something blue at my wedding. You know what I don't understand, Ethan? How you could sleep beside me every night while plotting to steal my home. I didn't steal anything. I was protecting our future. Your future, I corrected. With your perfect family picture. Your sister in my office, your mother in my kitchen, your name on my grandmother's house. Everything I did for us. No, I said quietly. Everything you did to me. The officer stepped forward again, but Ethan backed away. You're making a mistake. Vanessa, tell them about the agreement. Mom, show them the papers. But Vanessa was already edging toward the door, her survival instincts kicking in. Geraldine stood frozen, her carefully constructed world crumbling. Mr. Walker, Detective Martinez said firmly, we can do this here or at the station. Your choice. Ethan's charm cracked completely. This is your fault, he shouted at me. I gave you everything, a family, a purpose. You were nothing before us. Wrong again, I replied, slipping my grandmother's ring onto my finger. I was everything before you. I just forgot for a while. As the officers led Ethan away, Vanessa made one last attempt. The children, she pleaded. Think about what this will do to them. I looked at Oliver and Chloe, huddled together on the stairs. I am thinking about them. They deserve to see that actions have consequences, even for family. Especially for family, Harold added, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. One by one, they left, Ethan in handcuffs, Vanessa clutching her children, Geraldine leaning heavily on Harold's arm. The house fell silent, empty of everything except truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila. Need company? I looked around at my reclaimed space, the walls that had witnessed my strongest and weakest moments, the furniture that held memories both bitter and sweet, the windows that would now let in light without shadows. Not tonight, I typed back. For the first time in years, I know exactly where I belong. I sat at my grandmother's desk, running my fingers over the worn wood, and began to write, not about revenge or justice, but about reclaiming yourself when the world tries to write your story for you. Sighed, I heard Ethan's voice one last time, calling my name from the police car. I didn't answer. Some chapters need to end for others to begin. 6 months later, I sat across from Ethan in a sterile conference room, watching him sign the final divorce papers. He looked smaller somehow, his designer suit hanging loose on his frame, his charm dulled by reality. I never meant for it to go this far, he said, pushing the papers toward me. I know. And I did know. That was the tragedy of it all. He'd destroyed our marriage trying to build his perfect family, never realizing what he already had. Outside the lawyer's office, Harold waited on a bench. We'd maintained a careful friendship these past months, meeting for coffee occasionally, both of us trying to understand how family could go so wrong. Vanessa's moving to Seattle, he said as I approached. Fresh start, she says. Kids are adjusting. I thought of Oliver and Chloe, caught in their mother's web of manipulation. They'll figure it out eventually. Kids usually do. Like you did. He smiled sadly. Geraldine still won't admit she was wrong. She visits Ethan every week, tells him he's the victim in all this. And you. I'm selling the house, he said quietly. Too many ghosts? I nodded, understanding completely. My own home had needed months of cleansing, not just physically removing their traces, but emotionally reclaiming each space. My office was mine again, filled with books and manuscripts. Kitchen hummed with my grandmother's old recipes instead of Geraldine's judgments. My phone buzzed, a text from Lila about our weekend plans. Life had settled into a new rhythm, one that felt more authentic than anything I'd known in years. "There's something else," Harold said, reaching into his jacket. "We found this while packing up the old house. It was hidden in Geraldine's things." He handed me a weathered envelope, my grandmother's distinctive handwriting on the front. "For Rachel, when the storm passes." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter dated just weeks before she died, and a small key I recognized from my childhood. "My dearest Rachel," the letter began. "If you're reading this, you've weathered a storm I always feared would come. I've watched you build your life with such care, but I've also seen the shadows gathering, people who mistake possession for love, control for family." Key, she explained, opened a safety deposit box at her old bank. Inside was everything she'd wanted to protect for me: family photos, legal documents, and a trust fund I'd never known about. "Because sometimes," she wrote, "the strongest walls aren't the ones we build around our homes, but the ones we build around our hearts. And sometimes, dear one, those walls need to come down for us to truly live." Harold touched my shoulder gently. "She knew, didn't she? Even then." "She always knew," I whispered, folding the letter carefully. As I drove home, I passed the coffee shop where Ethan and I had first met. The memory didn't sting anymore. It was just another chapter in a story that had taught me more about strength than weakness. At home, I made tea in my grandmother's old pot and sat at her writing desk. The house creaked and settled around me, comfortable in its solitude. On my laptop, the cursor blinked at the top of a blank document. I'd been trying to write about what happened, but every attempt felt incomplete. How do you capture the moment you realize family isn't always about blood? How do you explain that sometimes revenge isn't about destroying others, but about saving yourself? My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. A photo of Oliver and Chloe, smiling in front of a "Welcome to Seattle" sign. No words, just the image. I saved it, understanding the message beneath. Some bonds survive even when families break. I turned back to my laptop and began to write, not about betrayal or revenge, but about reconstruction. About how sometimes you have to let your world fall apart to build something truer from the pieces. Sighed, the sun set on another quiet evening, painting my walls with colors that belonged only to me.
The scent of peaches and cinnamon filled my kitchen as I pulled the cobbler from the oven, my hands trembling slightly despite my best efforts to stay calm. After 30 years of performing open-heart surgeries, you'd think meeting my future daughter-in-law wouldn't rattle my nerves. Yet here I was, a retired surgeon turned hospital administrator, fighting the urge to check my reflection in the microwave door for the 100th time. My name is Lila, and this was the moment everything started to unravel, though I didn't know it then. The doorbell chimed, and I heard Ethan's familiar voice mixing with a woman's laugh outside. I smoothed down my apron and took a deep breath. This was just dinner, I told myself. Just meeting the woman who'd captured my son's heart after only 6 months of dating. I opened the door to find Ethan beaming, his arm around a striking woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Mom, this is Marissa," he said, practically glowing with pride. Marissa's smile was dazzling, practiced. "Dr. Foster, it's wonderful to finally meet you." Her eyes darted past me, scanning my modest rental home. Something flickered across her face, disappointment maybe, before her smile reset. "Please call me Lila," I said, ushering them inside. "I hope you like peach cobbler. It's an old family recipe." "Oh, how quaint," Marissa said, her tone making the words sound like anything but a compliment. "I usually avoid sugar, but I'm sure I can make an exception." As I led them to the living room, I caught Marissa examining the family photos on my walls. "These must be from before the divorce?" she asked innocently. "Ethan mentioned you used to have quite a lovely house in Beverly Hills." My son shifted uncomfortably. "Marissa?" "It's fine," I said, though something in my chest tightened. "Yes, we downsized after the divorce. But this place suits me just fine." "Of course." Marissa smiled that perfect smile again. Though it must be quite an adjustment, going from a successful surgeon to,
"What is it you do now?"
hospital administration. "Mom's the chief operating officer at St. Mary's," Ethan interjected proudly. She oversees the entire surgical department. How fascinating, Marissa said, but her attention had already drifted to her phone. Oh, darling, remember we have that charity gala at 8. We should probably keep dinner brief. I busied myself in the kitchen, plating the cobbler while their whispered conversation drifted in from the living room. Can't believe you didn't tell me about the money situation. Doesn't matter, Marissa. Mom's amazing at what she does. Just think we should discuss these things. My hands stilled over the dessert plates. Something about Marissa's tone, the calculated way she'd asked about my past, set off warning bells I couldn't quite silence. I'd spent decades reading people's vital signs. Right now, everything about this woman screamed danger. When I returned with the cobbler, Marissa was showing Ethan something on her phone, their heads close together. I've already found the perfect venue, she was saying. It's exclusive, very modern. We'll need to book it soon if we want a spring wedding. I nearly dropped the plates. Wedding? You're engaged. Ethan looked up, guilt washing over his face. I was going to tell you tonight, Mom. We wanted you to be the first to know. Marissa held up her left hand, a massive diamond catching the light. We're thinking April. Small ceremony, very intimate. Just immediate family and our closest friends. Her eyes met mine, challenge lurking behind the sweetness. We wouldn't want anything too traditional. As I watched my son beam at this woman he barely knew, I felt something shift in my chest. Not the familiar ache of letting go, but something sharper. Something that told me this was just the beginning of a very dangerous game. And I had no choice but to play. I've spent countless hours in operating rooms, making split-second decisions that determined whether someone lived or died. But sitting in this upscale bridal boutique, watching Marissa dismiss every suggestion I made with a practiced smile, was its own kind of surgery, the slow, painful extraction of my role in my son's life. What about this one? I held up a photo of a classic wedding arch draped with my grandmother's antique lace. It's been in our family for 4 generations. Marissa barely glanced up from her phone. Oh, we're going for more of a modern aesthetic. Clean lines, minimalist design. Nothing. She paused, that smile flickering across her face. Dated. Ethan sat beside her, scrolling through venue options on his tablet. The lace is beautiful, Mom, but Marissa's right. The Crystal Palace has this amazing geometric arch that would match their whole design concept. The Crystal Palace? I tried to keep my voice neutral. Isn't that the new venue that costs? Money isn't an issue. Marissa cut in smoothly. Daddy's handling everything. She turned to the wedding planner, a rail-thin woman named Victoria who looked like she subsisted entirely on espresso and judgment. Show her the tablescape concept. Victoria produced a tablet displaying stark white tables with chrome and glass centerpieces. No flowers, no warmth, no trace of the joyful family celebrations I'd always imagined for my son's wedding. We're limiting the guest list to 200, Marissa continued. Very exclusive. Just immediate family and our closest circle. 200 is immediate family? I couldn't help asking. Well, we have to invite Daddy's business associates and my sorority sisters and… What about the Hendersons? I asked. They've been like second parents to Ethan since he was 5. Marissa's perfectly manicured nails tapped against her phone screen. The guest list is actually pretty much finalized. We had to make some hard decisions to keep it curated. I watched my son's face, searching for any sign that this bothered him. But he just smiled that same besotted smile, completely under her spell. Now, about the mother-son dance, Victoria interjected, consulting her clipboard. We're thinking of skipping the traditional. Skipping it? My voice cracked slightly. I'd been practicing that dance with Ethan since he was tall enough to stand on my feet. The timeline is very tight, Marissa explained. And we want to maximize dancing time for all the guests. Besides, she added with a laugh that felt like ice water down my spine, we wouldn't want to risk any unpredictable moments. The implication hung in the air like smoke. My divorce, my downsizing, my supposed fall from grace, all carefully cataloged weaknesses she could exploit. Mom, Ethan finally looked up, concern creasing his forehead. You okay? I forced a smile, years of maintaining composure in crisis situations coming in handy. Of course, sweetheart. Whatever makes your day special. Marissa's phone buzzed.
Oh,
The florist is ready for us at the Crystal Palace. Victoria, can you handle the rest of the details with Dr. Foster? Ethan and I should really get going. Actually, Victoria said, not meeting my eyes, we've got everything covered. No need to trouble Dr. Foster further. I watched them gather their things, Marissa efficiently herding my son toward the door. Just before they left, she turned back. Oh, and Dr. Foster? About the rehearsal dinner. We've decided to have it at Le Cirque. Black tie, of course. I hope that won't be an issue. The door chimed as they exited, leaving me alone with Victoria, who was already packing up her tablets and samples. I sat there, my hands clenched in my lap, remembering how it felt to hold a scalpel, to have that precise control over life and death. But this wasn't the operating room. This was psychological warfare, and Marissa was winning.
for now.
As I drove home, my phone lit up with a text from Ethan. Thanks for understanding about the dance, Mom. Marissa just wants everything to be perfect.
Perfect.
The word echoed in my mind like a warning bell. I'd seen enough perfect facades crack under pressure to know what usually lurked beneath them. And I was starting to think it was time to apply some pressure of my own. The Crystal Palace's marble floors echoed with my footsteps as I searched for the restroom during the venue walkthrough. That's when I heard them. Marissa's voice floating from behind a partially closed door, followed by another woman's whispered response. I shouldn't have stopped. Shouldn't have listened. But 30 years of medical practice taught me to trust my instincts, and something in their tone made me freeze. You can't keep avoiding this conversation forever, Marissa. The voice was sharp, concerned. What happens when he finds out? He won't find out, Tessa. That's the point. Marissa's laugh had none of its usual polish. By the time the wedding's over, it won't matter anyway. You mean by the time you have access to his trust fund? My hand gripped the wall, steadying myself as Marissa continued. Do you know what it's like being one bad quarter away from losing everything? Daddy's company is hemorrhaging money. Once this wedding happens, Ethan's family money becomes our safety net. But you don't love him. It wasn't a question. Love doesn't pay bills, Tess. Besides, he's
Nice.
safe. The kind of guy who'll never question why his wife needs another credit card. And his mother? The doctor? A scoff. Please. She's living in a rental after her divorce. She's hardly the society powerhouse she used to be. A few more subtle hints about her situation, and Ethan will distance himself naturally. Men always choose their wives over their mothers. My chest tightened, the familiar pressure of an impending storm. I'd felt it before surgery's gone wrong, before my ex-husband's confession of infidelity, before every major catastrophe in my life. What about the prenup his family's lawyer mentioned? Already handled. I convinced Ethan it would hurt my feelings, make it seem like he doesn't trust me. He's talking to the lawyer tomorrow about dropping it. The sound of heels clicking on marble sent me ducking behind a massive floral arrangement. Marissa and a redhead, Tessa, emerged, adjusting their designer dresses. Just promise me you know what you're doing, Tessa said, touching Marissa's arm. Playing with people's hearts. It has a way of backfiring. Trust me, Marissa smiled, all teeth and determination. In 6 months, I'll be Mrs. Ethan Foster, with access to generations of old money. His mother will be a distant memory, and everyone wins. Except Ethan. He gets a trophy wife who knows how to navigate his social circle, better than some public school teacher who shops at Target. They disappeared around the corner, their laughter fading like smoke. I stood there, surrounded by overpriced flowers and crystalline chandeliers, feeling the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Where are you, Mom? Marissa wants to show you the ballroom setup. I stared at his message, remembering the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who trusted me to keep him safe from everything scary in the world. Now here I was, holding the lightning that could destroy his happiness. But was it really happiness? Or just another surgery gone wrong that I needed to fix? Making my way to the ballroom, I pulled up my browser and typed, Marissa Caldwell background check. Then, after a moment's hesitation, Charles Caldwell Company financial troubles. Sorry, got turned around, I announced, pushing through the ornate doors. This place is quite something. Marissa beamed, her arm linked through Ethan's. Isn't it perfect? Just like a fairy tale. I smiled back, channeling every poker face I'd ever worn in the operating room. Yes, quite the story we're creating here. Because that's what it was, a story. And like any good surgeon, I knew sometimes you had to break things to heal them properly. I just hoped my son would forgive me for the fractures to come. The background check result sat heavy in my laptop, like a tumor I'd just discovered on a scan. 3 failed businesses. 2 bankruptcies. A string of wealthy fiancés who mysteriously backed out of engagements. The Caldwell family fortune was a house of cards, and Marissa was desperately searching for a safety net.
My son was that net.
I closed the laptop as the hospital cafeteria chair across from me scraped against the floor. Hank dropped into it, sliding a coffee my way. After 30 years of friendship and countless surgeries together, he could read my face like a medical chart. You look like you did before the Jensen transplant, he said, stirring his coffee. The one where we found the hidden clot. Marissa's using him, Hank. I have proof. He leaned back, his surgical precision evident even in the way he chose his words. And you're sure this isn't about feeling replaced? I heard her admit it. She's after his trust fund. Her father's company is failing, and she... My voice caught as a group of residents walked past. She doesn't love him. Have you told him? The coffee burned my throat. How can I? You know Ethan. He'd never believe she could be so calculating. He'd think I was trying to sabotage his happiness because I'm lonely or bitter about my divorce. Are you? Hank. He held up his hands. Just playing devil's advocate. Like we used to do before difficult procedures, remember? Consider all angles before making the first cut. My phone buzzed, another text from Ethan. Hey Mom, Marissa suggested we move the rehearsal dinner to the yacht club. Hope that works for you. The yacht club, where membership cost more than my annual salary. Where I'd once been a member, before the divorce stripped away the veneer of wealth that Marissa so desperately craved. She's isolating him, I said, showing Hank the text. Every event, every decision, it's all designed to emphasize the gap between his world and mine. Between who I used to be and who I am now. And who are you now, Lila? The question hit like a defibrillator shock. I'm his mother. I'm supposed to protect him. From what? Making his own mistakes. From being used. Several heads turned our way, and I lowered my voice. You didn't hear her, Hank. The way she talked about him, like he was just a convenient ATM with a pulse. Hank's expression softened. Remember Tommy Chin? The patient who refused to believe his heart was failing until he collapsed in his daughter's wedding. What's your point? Sometimes people have to hit rock bottom before they'll see the truth, even when that truth is killing them. My pager buzzed, a board meeting in 10 minutes. As I gathered my things, Hank caught my arm. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Sometimes trying to prevent a crash causes one instead. I thought about his words all through the meeting, barely registering the budget discussions and staffing reports. My phone lit up with another message, this time from an unknown number. Dr. Foster? This is Tessa Green. We need to talk about Marissa. Can we meet? My heart raced. Marissa's friend from the Crystal Palace, the one who'd questioned her motives. This could be the evidence I needed, the smoking gun that would open Ethan's eyes. Or it could be a trap. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, reflecting my tired face. In surgery, there was always a clear protocol, a right way to proceed. But this was like operating blindfolded, never knowing if the next cut would save the patient or sever an artery.
Dr.
Foster? My assistant poked her head in. Your son's here to see you. I quickly closed the message. Send him in. Ethan appeared, beaming. Mom, great news. Marissa's father is insisting on paying for your yacht club membership as a wedding gift. Isn't that amazing? I forced a smile, feeling the weight of everything I knew pressing against my chest like a time bomb. Amazing. I echoed, watching my son's happy face and wondering how much damage the truth would do. My fingers hovered over my phone, over Tessa's message, as I made the hardest decision of my life. Sometimes, to save a heart, you have to break it first. I shouldn't have come to Ethan's birthday party. The invitation never arrived, probably lost in the mail, Marissa had said sweetly when I called to ask about it. But mothers don't need invitations to their children's birthdays. At least they didn't used to. The Caldwell mansion loomed before me, every window blazing with light, music and laughter spilling onto the manicured lawn. I clutched the small wrapped package, a vintage watch that had belonged to Ethan's grandfather, and forced myself up the steps. A server opened the door, his expression shifting from professional welcome to uncertainty when I gave my name. "I'm sorry, you're not on the list, but let me check with Mom." Ethan appeared behind him, champagne in hand, his face a mix of surprise and something else. Embarrassment? "What are you doing here?" "Happy birthday, sweetheart." I held out the package like a peace offering. "I thought since we couldn't do our usual dinner." "Right, yeah, of course." He glanced over his shoulder, then quickly ushered me inside. "Marissa just organized this last-minute thing." The foyer opened into a sea of designer dresses and tailored suits. Young professionals with perfect hair and practiced laughs, all holding crystal flutes of champagne. No one I recognized. No one from our old life, our real life. "Dr. Foster." Marissa's voice cut through the crowd. She glided over, elegant in a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "What a surprise. We thought you'd be too busy with hospital work to join us." "I'd never miss my son's birthday." "Of course not." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ethan, darling, your father's business partner wants to discuss the trust fund arrangements." "Mom, will you be okay for a minute?" Ethan asked, already being pulled away. I nodded, watching him disappear into the crowd. A server offered me champagne, and I took it, needing something to do with my hands. "I can't believe she showed up." The whispered voice came from behind a massive floral arrangement. I recognized it as Tessa's. "Sure, not so loud," Marissa replied. "This is actually perfect. When she sees how well Ethan fits into our world, maybe she'll finally get the hint and back off." "You really think she'll just disappear?" "She won't have a choice. Once we're married, all those cute little family traditions will have to go. No more Sunday dinners, no more holiday cooking sessions. Ethan needs to focus on networking, not playing house with mommy." "And the trust fund discussion?" "Already handled. The papers are being drawn up to add me as a co-trustee. Just in case anything happens to Ethan, you know?" My champagne glass trembled. I set it down before it could shatter. "Dr. Foster?" A young woman touched my arm, dark-haired, wearing a simple blue dress that stood out among the designer labels. "I'm Zoe. I work with Ethan at the foundation. He talks about you all the time." "Does he?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Are you okay? You look pale." "I just need some air." I pushed through the crowd toward the terrace, but Marissa's voice followed me. "Oh, good. She's leaving." Honestly, it's embarrassing. She doesn't even try to fit in anymore. The night air hit my face like a slap. I gripped the stone balustrade, trying to steady myself. Behind me, the party continued. My son's birthday celebration that I hadn't been invited to, where his fiancée was plotting to erase me from his life. "Dr. Foster?" It was Zoe again, holding out my forgotten gift. "You dropped this." I stared at the carefully wrapped package, remembering how Ethan's eyes used to light up at presents, how he'd save the paper, how he'd hug me so tight I could feel his heartbeat. "Would you give this to him?" I asked. Tell him I had an emergency at the hospital." "Are you sure?" "He'd want you to stay." "Would he?" I looked back through the windows at my son, laughing with Marissa's friends, fitting perfectly into her world. I'm not so sure anymore. I drove home in silence, my surgeon's hand steady on the wheel even as my world spun out of control. I had a decision to make. Let Marissa win, watch my son disappear into her carefully constructed fantasy, or fight back, knowing I might lose him anyway. My phone lit up with Tessa's message again. "We need to talk about Marissa." This time, I replied. When and where? The knock on my door came at exactly 9 a.m., precise as a scalpel cut. I'd been expecting it since my meeting with Tessa yesterday, where she'd revealed the full extent of Marissa's plans, the trust fund manipulation, the prenup sabotage, the carefully orchestrated isolation of my son. I opened the door to find Marissa, immaculate in a cream-colored suit, holding a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my car. "Dr. Foster," she said, stepping past me without waiting for an invitation. "We need to discuss the wedding. Or, more specifically, your role in it." My phone sat on the coffee table, its voice recorder already running. A trick I'd learned from years of medical liability concerns: always document the important conversations. "Would you like some coffee?" I asked, playing for time. "Let's not pretend this is a social call." She opened her briefcase, removing a thick envelope. "I have a proposition that will benefit everyone." "Everyone meaning you?" Her smile tightened. "Inside this envelope is a cashier's check for $500,000. It's yours, in exchange for missing the wedding. Take a trip, visit friends, I don't care. Just be anywhere but there." The envelope landed on my coffee table with a soft thud. "You're trying to buy me off?" "I'm trying to spare everyone the embarrassment of your situation." She gestured vaguely at my modest living room. "Ethan's moving up in the world. He doesn't need constant reminders of where he came from." "Where he came from?" My voice shook. "I raised him alone after his father left. I worked 80-hour weeks to put him through college. Yes, you are a wonderful mother." She waved dismissively. "But it's time to let go. Let him evolve beyond Sunday dinners and hometown nostalgia." "Into what?"
Your puppet?
Her eyes hardened. "Into someone worthy of his trust fund. Someone who understands that success requires cutting dead weight." "Is that what I am? Dead weight?" "You're a liability." She leaned forward, dropping the polite facade. "Do you think my friends want to socialize with someone who lives in a rental? Who works in administration after failing as a surgeon?" "I didn't fail. You lost everything in the divorce. Your house, your status, your place in society. And now you're trying to drag Ethan down with you." My hands clenched. "You don't know anything about my son. I know he's too nice to tell you the truth. That your constant presence, your little family traditions, they're holding him back. This check." She tapped the envelope. "Consider it severance pay. Get out. Think carefully, Dr. Foster. Fight me on this, and I'll make sure Ethan sees you for what you really are: a bitter, jealous woman who can't accept that her son has outgrown her." "You're threatening me?" "I'm offering you a dignified exit. Take it, or I'll make sure every society page in town knows about your fall from grace. How you lost your surgical career after that patient died." "That's a lie. Truth is irrelevant. Perception is everything." She stood, smoothing her perfect suit. "You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires and I stop playing nice." She walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and that lovely girl from the party?"
Zoe?
"I've already arranged her transfer to another department. Can't have any sympathetic allies around." The door closed behind her with a soft click. I sat there, staring at the envelope, feeling the walls close in. Everything I'd gathered, the background checks, Tessa's revelations, the recorded conversations, suddenly felt meaningless against Marissa's ruthless determination. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Mom, Marissa told me about your conversation. Why are you making this so difficult? Maybe some distance would be good for everyone." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. She'd beaten me to him, twisted the narrative before I could even fight back. Just like she'd planned. I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight, the price tag for my son's future. Inside was enough money to start over somewhere else, to avoid watching Marissa systematically erase me from Ethan's life.
My phone buzzed again.
This time from Zoe. "Dr. Foster, I'm being transferred next week. But before I go, there's something you need to know about Marissa's past. Something not in any background check." I stared at the message, then at the envelope, then at the still-running voice recorder that had captured every word of Marissa's threats. Sometimes, the only way to save a patient is to let them flatline first. The rehearsal dinner at Le Cirque sparkled with crystal and pretense. I sat at my assigned table, far from Ethan, naturally, watching Marissa work the room like a conductor leading her orchestra of lies. My phone felt heavy in my clutch, loaded with everything: the recorded bribe, Tessa's revelations, and most importantly, what Zoe had discovered about Marissa's past. 2 previous engagements, 2 other trust funds, 2 families who'd narrowly escaped her web. Marissa clinked her glass, rising for yet another toast. I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially those who truly support our vision for the future. Her eyes found mine, a subtle warning in their depths. I touched my own glass, feeling the weight of the moment. Years of surgical training had taught me timing was everything. Actually, I stood, my voice carrying across the sudden silence. I'd like to make a toast too. Ethan's face registered surprise, then concern. Marissa's smile froze. To new beginnings, I said, pulling out my phone. And to truth. Mother, Ethan started, but I pressed play before anyone could stop me. Marissa's voice filled the room. $500,000. It's yours, in exchange for missing the wedding. The recording continued, each word dropping like a stone into still water. Her threats, her contempt, her calculated manipulation of my son, all laid bare before her carefully curated audience. Turn that off, Marissa commanded, but her voice shook.
Why?
Isn't this what you wanted? Everyone knowing the truth about our situation. Ethan stood, his face pale. Mom, what is this? Ask your fiancée about her other engagements, I said quietly. Ask her about the Hamilton family in Boston, or the Pierces in Chicago. Ask her why they called off their weddings just weeks before she could access their trust funds. You're lying, Marissa snapped, but her perfect facade was cracking. Zoe found them before you had her transferred. They're here tonight, actually. I gestured to a couple near the back, the surprise guests I'd arranged through Hank's connections. Would you like to hear their stories? The room erupted in whispers. Marissa's father stood, swaying slightly. Is this true? The company money, Daddy don't, is gone, I finished. Just like it was going to be after you gained control of Ethan's trust fund. Ethan, Marissa turned to my son, reaching for him. Baby, she's trying to manipulate you. She's jealous, bitter. Stop. Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. He was staring at his phone, where Tessa, bless her guilty conscience, had just sent him screenshots of text messages revealing Marissa's entire plan. I can explain, Marissa started, but Ethan stepped back. The prenup you said would hurt your feelings? The one you convinced me to drop? Was that part of the plan too? The silence was deafening. You never loved me, did you? His voice cracked, and my heart broke for him. Marissa's composure finally shattered. Love doesn't pay bills. You don't understand what it's like to lose everything, to become nothing. Like I did. I interrupted softly. When I chose to leave my surgical career to raise my son alone. When I downsized to put him through college. That kind of nothing. The Hamilton couple stood up. She did the same thing to our son, Mrs. Hamilton announced. Right down to the prenup manipulation. Chaos erupted. Guests began leaving, phones recording everything. Marissa's father demanded answers about company funds. And through it all, my son stood frozen, his world unraveling thread by carefully constructed thread. The wedding's off, he finally said, his voice carrying over the commotion. It's over, Marissa. She turned to me, mascara tracking down her perfect face. You've ruined everything. No, I replied, thinking of all the patience I'd saved over the years. I just prevented another catastrophic failure. As security escorted a screaming Marissa out, I caught sight of Zoe quietly supporting Ethan near the exit. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, I saw something real, a genuine connection untainted by manipulation or greed. Sometimes healing requires cutting away the disease to save the heart. And my son's heart, though wounded, would heal stronger than before. 6 months after the rehearsal dinner that never became a wedding, I found myself back in my kitchen, making Sunday dinner. The familiar rhythm of chopping vegetables and measuring spices felt like coming home after a long surgery. Comfortable, right? The doorbell rang just as I was sliding a lasagna into the oven. Through the window, I could see Ethan's car in the driveway, and beside it, Zoe's modest sedan. They'd been spending more time together since the aftermath, first as friends, then as something more. "Mom," Ethan called out, using his key for the first time since the Marissa debacle. "We brought wine. And, something else you should see." They entered the kitchen, Zoe carrying a bottle of my favorite red, Ethan holding what looked like a letter. My heart skipped. I recognized the expensive stationery. "Marissa sent this to my office," he said quietly. "Asked me to make sure you read it." I wiped my hands on my apron, taking the envelope. "Have you?" He shook his head. "It's addressed to you. Besides, I've had enough Marissa revelations for one lifetime." Zoe touched his arm gently, and the simple gesture contained more genuine affection than all of Marissa's calculated displays ever had. "We'll open the wine," she said, leading him to the living room. I unfolded the letter, noting the slight tremor in the usually perfect handwriting.
Dr. Foster.
Daddy lost everything. The company, the house, our reputation. Turns out I learned my skills at manipulation from the master. He'd been running a Ponzi scheme for years. Everything I thought I was protecting never really existed. I'm writing this from a studio apartment in Phoenix, working as a junior account manager. Real work for the first time in my life. It's humbling. I won't ask for forgiveness. What I did to Ethan, to you, to those other families, it's unforgivable. But I want you to know that you were right. About everything. About what really matters. I saw a mother and daughter having coffee next door yesterday. They were laughing over some shared joke, and I realized I've never had that. Never valued it. I was so busy chasing status that I missed the real wealth right in front of me. Thank you for stopping me before I destroyed another life. Including my own. Marissa.
P.S.
I heard about Ethan and Zoe.
She's what I pretended to be.
He deserves that kind of real. I folded the letter, feeling an unexpected wave of, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. How many times had I seen desperate people make terrible choices in my operating room? "Mom," Ethan appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" "Better than okay." I smiled, tucking the letter away. "How about we eat in the dining room today? I think it's time to bring out Grandma's old china." Later, as we sat around my modest dining table, Ethan laughing at one of Zoe's hospital stories, Hank dropping by with his famous garlic bread, wine flowing freely, I realized something profound. Marissa had been right about one thing. Perception isn't reality. But she'd been looking through the wrong end of the telescope. Real wealth wasn't in trust funds or social status. It was here, in Sunday dinners and genuine laughter, in the messy, imperfect connections that no amount of money could buy. "I've been thinking," I said during a lull in conversation, "about taking that trip to Italy I always talked about. Maybe in the spring." "Really?" Ethan's eyes lit up. "What brought this on?" I looked around my small dining room, at the faces of people who loved me for who I was, not what I represented. Let's just say I finally understand the difference between what we have and what we own. Zoe raised her glass. "To new adventures?" "To real wealth," I corrected, thinking of Marissa in her Phoenix apartment, finally learning the same lesson. As we clinked glasses, I caught sight of my reflection in the window, not a fallen society doctor, not a bitter divorcee, but simply a woman who'd chosen truth over pretense, love over status, and found herself richer for it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, but reconstruction. Building something genuine from the ashes of what was fake. And sometimes, healing comes in unexpected ways, for unexpected people. The bass from the music hit me before I even got out of my car. 3 days away on business, and already Juniper had turned our parents' house into her personal nightclub. Through the living room windows, silhouettes danced and swayed, their movements casting wild shadows across the manicured lawn. I gripped my phone, thumb hovering over Mom's number. But what was the point? She and Dad were probably at their weekend cabin, pretending not to know what Juniper was up to. Again. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air reeked of spilled beer and cheap perfume. Someone had pushed all the furniture against the walls, transforming the space into a makeshift dance floor. My sister stood in the center, head thrown back, drink sloshing in her hand as she twirled.
Got ya.
Juniper's eyes lit up with false brightness when she spotted me. The prodigal daughter returns. Everyone, this is my big sister, the one who's too important for family now. A few partygoers turned to stare. I forced myself to breathe slowly, counting backward from 10 like my therapist suggested. We need to talk.
Now.
Oh, do we? Juniper's smile sharpened. Because last I checked, you were too busy with your fancy business trips to talk.
3 days, Calla.
You missed everything. Missed what, exactly? She laughed, but the sound was hollow. Like you care. You're just here to judge me, right? Poor little Juniper, such a mess compared to perfect Calla. A guy I didn't recognize wrapped his arms around my sister's waist. She leaned into him, eyes never leaving my face. This is Derek. Or maybe Danny. We just met, but he gets me, unlike some people. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You need to end this.
Now.
Before what? Juniper's voice rose, drawing more attention. Before Mom and Dad find out?
Please.
They already know. They just don't want to deal with it. With me. Sound familiar? My phone buzzed, a text from Reese asking if I'd made it home safely. I ignored it, focusing on my sister's flushed face, the slight tremor in her hands. Let me help you clear everyone out. We can talk after. I don't need your help. She shoved past me, stumbling slightly. I never needed it. You just love playing savior, don't you? Makes you feel better about abandoning us. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, sis. Juniper grabbed a bottle from a nearby table, refilling her cup. But hey, at least you got what you wanted. The perfect job, the perfect boyfriend, the perfect escape. Meanwhile, I'm stuck here, watching Mom cry every time you skip another family dinner. The music seemed to pulse louder, matching the throbbing in my temples. Through the crowd, I caught glimpses of overturned photo frames, scattered cushions. Mom's prized vase teetering dangerously close to the edge of a shelf. You want to know what you missed? Juniper's voice dropped to a whisper. I found something interesting in Dad's office. Something that might make you rethink your whole perfect family narrative. Before I could respond, she turned away, melting back into the crowd. Thanks for stopping by, sis. Don't worry about cleaning up. I'm sure Mom will handle it. She always does. I stood there, surrounded by strangers in my childhood home, watching my sister disappear into the chaos she'd created. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from Mom. Everything okay with Junie? Dad and I are worried. I closed my eyes, remembering the look in Juniper's eyes, that mix of defiance and desperation. Whatever she'd found in Dad's office, whatever game she was playing, this was just the beginning. 3 days after the party disaster, Mom insisted on a family dinner. To clear the air, she said, but I knew better. It was damage control, her specialty. Reese squeezed my hand under the table as Juniper waltzed in 20 minutes late, wearing the innocent smile she'd perfected since childhood. Sorry, everyone, she chirped, sliding into her seat. Traffic was awful. Oh, Reese, I didn't know you'd be here. Dad barely looked up from his plate. Your mother mentioned it twice. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken accusations. Mom bustled around, refilling water glasses no one had touched. I made your favorite lasagna, Junie. And Calla, I remembered you liked the end pieces. Actually, Juniper said, twirling her fork, Calla hasn't liked end pieces since high school. But how would you know? She's barely been home. Reese shifted beside me. I forced myself to take a bite, though the food tasted like cardboard. I've been busy with work. Oh yes, the famous career. Juniper's eyes gleamed. Speaking of which, how's that promotion coming along? The one you were so sure about. My fork clattered against the plate. What are you talking about? Just something I heard. She shrugged, but there was nothing casual about it. Your boss, Richard, right? He's an old friend of Dad's golf buddy. Small world. Dad's head snapped up. Juniper.
What?
I'm just making conversation. She turned to Reese. Did Calla tell you about the time she... That's enough. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. We're here to have a nice dinner. Are we? Juniper leaned forward. Because I thought we were here to pretend everything's fine. That's what we do best, right? Pretend Calla's not avoiding us. Pretend Dad's not.
Uni.
Dad's warning came too late. Pretend you didn't find those letters in Dad's office? The room went still. Mom's hand froze mid-reach for the salt shaker. Dad's face drained of color. What letters? I asked, but I already knew. This was what Juniper had been hinting at during the party. Nothing important, Dad said quickly. Too quickly. Juniper's laugh was sharp enough to cut. Really? Because they seemed pretty important, especially the ones about. That's enough. Dad's fist hit the table, making the glasses jump. This discussion is over. Of course it is. Juniper stood, her chair scraping against the floor. It always is when it's something you don't want to talk about. But maybe Calla deserves to know. Maybe we all do. She stormed out, leaving chaos in her wake. Mom started gathering plates with shaking hands. Dad wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. I should check on her, Mom murmured, but Dad caught her arm. Let her go, Leora. She needs to cool off. Reese cleared his throat. Maybe we should. Stay. Mom insisted, her smile brittle.
Please.
I'll make coffee. But as she disappeared into the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of tears in her eyes. Dad followed, leaving Reese and me alone with the wreckage of dinner. Your sister seems unhinged, I supplied. Manipulative? Take your pick. I was going to say troubled. Reese's voice was gentle. What do you think those letters are about? I stared at Juniper's empty chair, remembering the look in Dad's eyes. Whatever was in those letters, it was big enough to shake him. Big enough to give Juniper ammunition. I don't know, I said finally. But I'm going to find out. From the kitchen came the sound of hushed, urgent voices. My parents, probably deciding how to spin this latest drama. But Juniper was right about one thing. We were all experts at pretending. Maybe it was time to stop. My phone buzzed, a text from Juniper. Want the truth? Meet me tomorrow. Alone. Richard called me into his office first thing Monday morning. The pit in my stomach grew as I noticed the HR representative sitting quietly in the corner. On his desk lay a manila folder with my name on it. There's been some concerning feedback, he began, not quite meeting my eyes. About the Peterson account.
My throat went dry.
What kind of feedback? Claims that you've been sharing confidential information, using insider knowledge for personal gain. He slid a document across the desk. These emails suggest. Those aren't mine. The words came out sharp and fast. Someone's fabricated. They came from your work account, Calla. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I recognized some of the emails. They were real conversations I'd had about the Peterson deal, but they'd been altered. Key phrases changed or added to paint a damning picture. I need you to take some time off while we investigate, Richard said. Paid leave, of course. I walked out in a daze, barely registering the concerned looks from my colleagues. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed Juniper. Rough morning. Her voice dripped with false sympathy. I heard the Peterson account is having some issues. The pieces clicked into place. You did this. Did what? I just happened to mention to Richard's wife. We take the same yoga class, by the way, how worried I was about my sister's ethical choices lately. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. Why? Because you need to understand what it feels like. Her voice hardened. To have everything you've worked for threatened. To feel powerless. This is about Dad's letters, isn't it? A pause. Maybe if you'd been around more, you'd know what's really going on in this family. But you were too busy climbing the corporate ladder, weren't you?
Uni.
Oh, and you might want to check your email. I sent something interesting to your entire department. Just a few old family photos. Nothing too embarrassing. She laughed softly. Well, maybe a little embarrassing. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, hands trembling as I opened my work email. There they were, photos from my rebellious teenage years. carefully selected to make me look unstable, reckless. The kind of person who might leak confidential information for profit. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mom. Junie's upset. Says you accused her of something? Please call her. Another message popped up, this one from an unknown number. Saw the photos. Always knew you were a fraud. Peterson Corporation. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times I'd made excuses for Juniper's behavior, all the times our parents had smoothed things over. But this was different. She wasn't just acting out anymore. She was systematically destroying everything I'd built.
My phone rang.
Reese. Your sister just called me, he said without preamble. She told me some things about your past, about what happened during your first job. Whatever she said. I know it's probably not true. But Kala, this has to stop. You need to deal with this. I watched people stream in and out of the coffee shop, living their normal lives while mine unraveled. You're right. It needs to stop. I pulled up the transfer request form I'd been avoiding. A 6-month position had opened in the Seattle office. Far from Juniper, from the family secrets, from this whole mess. My finger hovered over the submit button as another text came through from Dad this time. We need to talk. About the letters. About everything. But I was done talking. Done pretending. Done letting Juniper control the narrative. I hit submit, then typed a response to Dad. You're right. We do need to talk. But first, you need to know what your youngest daughter just did. Seattle's rain matched my mood perfectly. 2 months into my transfer, and the distance hadn't brought the clarity I'd hoped for. My temporary apartment felt as hollow as the promises I'd made to call home more often. The knock at my door came just after midnight. I expected Reese, who'd been threatening to visit. Instead, I found Grandmother Alara, rain-soaked and carrying a familiar wooden box. Your father's letters, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. The ones Juniper's been using to torment everyone. My hands trembled as I reached for the box. How did you? Junie may be clever, but she forgets I taught her every hiding spot in that house. Alara's eyes were sharp, missing nothing, including the loose floorboard in her closet. Inside the box, dozens of letters lay bundled with faded ribbon. The top one bore my mother's handwriting, dated 5 years before my birth. I haven't read them, Alara said, but I know what they contain. Your father's not who you think he is, Kala. Neither is your mother. My phone buzzed, another message from Juniper. Missing something? Don't worry, I made copies. She's spiraling, Alara continued, watching me. Your leaving town only convinced her she was right about being abandoned. Now she's determined to make everyone pay. By destroying my career, my relationship. The bitterness surprised me. What's in these letters that's worth all this? That's not my story to tell. Alara moved to the window, watching the rain. But ask yourself, why didn't your father ever mention his first marriage? The room seemed to tilt. His what? Read the letters, dear. But remember, sometimes the truth hurts more than lies. My phone lit up again, Mom, this time. Junie's in the hospital. Overdose. Please come home. Alara didn't look surprised. Your sister's playing her final card. The question is, will you let her win? I sank onto the couch, the box heavy in my lap. Win what? She's already taken everything. Has she? Alara's voice sharpened. You have a choice here, Kala. You can stay hidden in Seattle, letting her control the narrative. Or you can go home and face the truth, all of it. The truth about Dad's first marriage? About whatever else is in these letters. The truth about why Juniper really hates you. Alara moved toward the door. It's not about the letters, dear. It's about what happened the night your father's first wife died. The night your mother was there. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from Dad. I should have told you years ago. About Sarah. About everything. Junie found out by accident. Please come home. Let me explain. Alara paused at the door. Whatever you decide, remember, revenge is a poison that kills slowly. Your sister's already drinking it. The question is, will you join her? After she left, I sat in the dark, the box of letters like a bomb in my lap. Outside, Seattle's rain kept falling, washing away everything except the choice before me. I could stay here, safe in my self-imposed exile. Or I could go home and face whatever ugly truth lay in these letters about Dad's first wife, Sarah, about Mom's involvement, about why Juniper chose now to detonate our family's carefully constructed lies. My fingers traced the edge of the first letter. Sometimes the truth hurts more than lies, Alara had said. But lies had already cost me my career, my peace of mind, and nearly my sister's life. I opened the letter and began to read. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me as I followed the nurse to Juniper's room. Mom's mascara-stained face appeared first, then Dad's rigid posture by the window. Between them, Juniper lay pale against white sheets, and 4 dripping steadily beside her. "You actually came." Her voice was raspy, but the familiar edge remained. "Did grandmother's delivery service convince you?" Mom's head snapped up. "What delivery?" "Nothing," I said quickly, but Juniper's laugh cut through the room. "Oh, did Dad not tell you about the letters, Mom? About Sarah?" The monitor's steady beeping filled the silence. Dad's knuckles whitened against the windowsill. "Silas." Mom's voice trembled. "What letters?" "The ones that explain everything," Juniper said. "About the accident. About why Dad married you so quickly afterward. About." "That's enough." Dad turned, his face ashen. "This isn't the time or place." "When is the time?" I stepped forward, Sarah's letters burning in my bag. "When Juniper succeeds next time. When she's destroyed everything I've built." "Built." Juniper's laugh turned bitter. "You mean the life you got because of what they did? The opportunities one never had because I wasn't." "Junie, please." Mom reached for her hand, but Juniper pulled away. "Tell her, Dad. Tell Kala why you always favored her. Why you pushed her to succeed while I was just the backup plan." "You don't know what you're talking about." Dad moved toward the door, but I blocked his path. "Then explain it. All of it. Starting with Sarah." The monitor's beeping accelerated. Mom sank into a chair, her face buried in her hands. "Your father and I," she began, but Dad cut her off. "Leora, don't. They deserve to know." Mom looked up, tears streaming. "About that night. About why we." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "MS. Andrews needs rest. Family can return during visiting hours tomorrow." "Perfect timing," Juniper muttered. "Just like that night, right, Mom?" Outside, the summer evening felt thick with unspoken words. Dad headed for his car without looking back, but Mom caught my arm. "The letters," she whispered. "How much do you know?" "Enough to understand why Juniper hates me. Why she's trying to destroy my life." "She doesn't hate you." Mom's grip tightened. "She hates what we did. What our choices cost her." "And what exactly was that?" "Ask your father about the inheritance. About why Sarah's family sued after the accident. About why you got everything while Juniper." "Leora." Dad's voice carried across the parking lot. "Not here." Mom released my arm, her eyes pleading. "Come to the house tomorrow. We'll explain everything." But as they drove away, my phone lit up with a text from Juniper. "They'll lie. They always do. Want the real story? Meet me at Sarah's grave. Midnight." I stood in the gathering darkness, weighing my options. The letters in my bag held one version of the truth. My parents promised another. And somewhere between them lay Juniper's twisted perspective, sharp enough to draw blood. Another text arrived, this one from Reese. "Your grandmother called. Said to remind you that some truths are better left buried." "What's going on, Kala?" I stared at the hospital's illuminated windows, thinking of Juniper lying there, simultaneously victim and villain in our family's tragedy. The truth about Sarah, about the inheritance, about that night, it all led to this moment. My fingers hovered over the phone's keyboard as I made my choice. Sometimes I realized you have to break everything to fix it properly. "Meet me at midnight." I texted back to Juniper. "It's time we both learned the truth." Sarah's headstone gleamed in the moonlight, the dates mocking me. She died exactly 1 month before my birth. Juniper sat cross-legged before it, still wearing her hospital gown beneath a borrowed jacket. "You shouldn't have left the hospital," I said. "And you shouldn't have gotten everything that was meant for her daughter." Juniper's voice was hollow. But here we are. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Sarah was pregnant. 8 months. Juniper traced the dates on the headstone. Dad was going to leave Mom for her. But then there was the accident. She pulled a crumpled photo from her pocket. Mom was there that night. Ask her about the brake lines. My legs gave out, and I sank to the damp grass. That's not possible. The inheritance was supposed to go to Sarah's baby. Instead, it went to you, Dad's firstborn with his new wife. Convenient timing, don't you think? Stop it.
Why?
Because it ruins your perfect image of them. Juniper's laugh echoed through the cemetery. They're not who you think they are, Calla. They're murderers. Headlights swept across the graves. A car door slammed.
Juni.
Mom's voice cracked with panic. You need to go back to the hospital. Tell her. Juniper didn't move. Tell her what you did to Sarah.
To her baby.
Dad appeared behind Mom, his face ghostly in the moonlight. That's enough. No, it's not. Juniper struggled to her feet. Tell her why you gave Calla everything, the trust fund, the connections, the opportunities.
Tell her it was blood money.
Sarah's family settlement, redirected to your new perfect daughter, while I got nothing. We were trying to protect you, Mom whispered. Protect me? By making me watch Calla get everything that should have gone to Sarah's baby? My sister? The world tilted sideways.
What?
Half-sister, Dad corrected quietly. Sarah was carrying my daughter. When she died. When the accident happened. When Mom cut the brake lines, you mean? I didn't, Mom's voice broke. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I just wanted to talk to her. But she died instead. Juniper's voice dripped venom. And 9 months later, perfect Calla arrived to replace what was lost. While I came later, the spare, the reminder of everything they did. My phone buzzed, Reese, probably wondering where I was. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process the horror unfolding. The letters, I managed. Show them. Juniper pulled them from her jacket. Already sent copies to the police. Anonymous tip about an old accident worth reinvestigating. Mom crumpled to the ground. Dad reached for her, but she recoiled. I wanted to hurt you, Juniper said, looking at me. Like they hurt Sarah. Like they hurt me by pretending everything was fine while giving you the life that should have been your sister's.
But now.
She dropped the letters at my feet. Now I just want the truth out. Sirens wailed in the distance. Dad's face went slack with recognition. Junie, please, he begged. We can fix this. Fix it. She gestured at Sarah's grave. Like you fix this?
No.
I'm done fixing your mistakes. The sirens grew closer. Mom sobbed quietly. Dad stood frozen. And between them all, I saw our family for what it really was, built on death, lies, and blood money that had bought my entire life. Juniper turned to leave, pausing only to whisper, Happy birthday, sis. Say hello to the police for me. Red and blue lights flooded the cemetery as I stared at Sarah's headstone, wondering how many more lives our family's secrets would destroy before the night was over. The interrogation room felt smaller with each passing hour. Across the table, Detective Chin studied the letters spread before her, while Mom sat silent beside her lawyer. Dad was in another room, probably telling his own version of the truth. MS. Andrews, Chin said, your sister claims these letters prove premeditation, that your mother deliberately caused Sarah Mitchell's accident. Before I could respond, the door opened. Grandmother Alara stepped in, her presence filling the cramped space. I'm afraid those letters don't prove anything, she said, because I wrote them. Mom's head snapped up. Chen's eyes narrowed. That's impossible, I said. They're in Dad's handwriting. The ones you have are copies. Alara pulled a weathered envelope from her purse. I forged the originals 27 years ago, to protect Sarah's real killer. The room went still. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Juniper in the hallway, her hospital gown replaced by police-issued sweats. Grandmother, she started, but Alara raised a hand. I watched you girls tear each other apart over lies. Lies I helped create. She placed the envelope on the table. Sarah wasn't leaving Silas for her baby. She was running from him. Mom's lawyer leaned forward. Mrs. Andrews. The brake lines weren't cut. Alara continued. Sarah drove off that road deliberately. I know because I was with her that night. She couldn't bear the thought of her child being born into Silas's web of manipulation and control. Chen opened the envelope, revealing photos. Sarah with bruises she'd hidden, hospital reports she'd never filed. Mom didn't kill anyone, I whispered. And Dad. Your father isn't the man you think he is. Alara's voice hardened. I forged those letters to protect Leora, to give her a chance to raise you girls away from him. But I failed. He still controlled everything. The inheritance, your opportunities, Juniper's isolation. Juniper appeared in the doorway, tears streaming. You knew? All this time? I thought I was protecting you both. Instead, I helped him pit you against each other. Chen gathered the evidence, her expression grim. We'll need formal statements. And Mr. Andrews will face questions about Sarah's abuse allegations. No. Mom stood suddenly. I'll tell you everything. About Sarah, about Silas, about what really happened that night. No more protecting him. Through the window, I watched Dad being led to another interrogation room. He caught my eye, and for the first time, I saw him clearly, not as the father who'd given me everything, but as the man who'd orchestrated our family's destruction. I'm sorry, Juniper whispered, joining me. I wanted. To hurt them, or to find the truth? Both. Neither. She pressed her forehead against the glass. I didn't know about Sarah, about what he did to her. Alara approached us, her shoulders heavy with decades of secrets. Your father's greatest weapon was turning you against each other. Don't let him win now. In the hallway, Mom emerged from the interrogation room, looking both broken and stronger than I'd ever seen her. She'd stopped protecting Dad's lies, chosen truth over false peace. What happens now?
Juniper asked.
I thought about Sarah, about the sister we never knew, about the weight of inherited sins. We stop fighting each other, and we start fighting him. Chun appeared with more forms, more questions, more unraveling threads of our family's tapestry of lies. But as I sat down to give my statement, I felt something shift between Juniper and me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like what you expect. Sometimes it looks like truth, finally breaking free. 6 months after Dad's arrest, I stood in Sarah's family cemetery, watching Juniper place fresh flowers on her half-sister's grave. The autumn wind carried the scent of rain and change. They're dedicating the women's shelter next week, Juniper said, adjusting the flowers. Mom thinks we should both speak at the opening. The shelter had been Mom's idea, funded by the inheritance I'd returned to Sarah's family. A place for women like Sarah, trying to escape men like our father. Have you visited him? I asked, though I already knew the answer.
No.
Juniper straightened, brushing dirt from her knees. But his letters keep coming. One every week, like clockwork. Just like he did to Sarah. We walked back to the car in silence, both thinking about the trial next month. Dad's lawyer had offered a deal, but Mom refused to back down. No more hiding, she'd said, her voice stronger with each passing day. Grandmother Alara waited at the house, supervising the movers as they packed up Dad's remaining belongings. She'd sold her own home to move closer, claiming she was done watching from a distance. The therapist called, she said as we entered. Confirmed tomorrow's session. Juniper tensed beside me. Family therapy had been her idea. Surprisingly, revenge didn't fix anything, she'd admitted during our first session. I just made new wounds instead of healing old ones. Reese arrived with lunch, carrying more than just food. Your boss called, he told me. They're offering you your job back. Full reinstatement, public apology for the misconceptions. And Junie? I asked. The university approved her transfer credits. She starts next semester. Juniper's hands shook slightly as she took the acceptance letter. She decided to study social work, turned her understanding of trauma into something constructive. Mom emerged from Dad's old office, carrying a familiar wooden box. Found more letters, she said. These are different though. Sarah wrote them, but never sent them. We gathered around the kitchen table, our new tradition, replacing the formal dining room dinners of our past. Mom opened the first letter, Sarah's words filling the space between us. "I hope my baby grows up stronger than me," Mom read. Strong enough to recognize love from control, truth from manipulation. Juniper reached for my hand under the table. I squeezed back, remembering all the ways we'd fought each other instead of the real enemy. "There's something else," Mom said, pulling out a photograph. Sarah, young and smiling, stood in this very kitchen. She was happy here once, before your father changed her. Changed all of us. "We changed ourselves back," Grandmother said firmly. The doorbell rang, Detective Chen making her weekly check-in, ensuring Dad hadn't violated the restraining order. Some habits of fear were harder to break than others. Later, as sunset painted the sky, I found Juniper in the garden, planting bulbs that wouldn't bloom until spring. "Do you think we'll ever be normal?" she asked. "Normal's overrated." I handed her another bulb. "I'll settle for honest." She nodded, understanding what I meant. We were building something new from the ashes of our father's lies. Not perfect, not unmarked by the past, but real. My phone buzzed. Another letter from Dad, probably full of explanations and justifications. I deleted it unread. Some voices didn't deserve to be heard anymore. "Ready for tomorrow?" I asked Juniper. She looked at the freshly turned earth, the promise of future flowers buried beneath. "Ready to try." Above us, storm clouds gathered and broke, rain washing away the last traces of summer. We stayed in the garden, letting it soak us, baptizing us into whatever came next. Not quite healed, not quite whole, but finally free. My name is Evelyn Reeves, and I never thought I'd be standing on the porch of my childhood home, suitcase in hand, feeling like a stranger. The divorce papers were barely dry, and here I was, crawling back to the very place I'd fought so hard to escape. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," my sister Clara's voice dripped with sarcasm as she opened the door. "The prodigal daughter returns." I forced a smile. "Nice to see you too, Clara." She stepped aside, allowing me to enter the house that seemed smaller and more suffocating than I remembered. The air was thick with the scent of my mother's signature pot roast, a smell that used to comfort me, but now only churned my stomach.
"Mom, Dad."
"Evelyn's here," Clara called out, her voice echoing through the house. I heard the clatter of pots in the kitchen, followed by hurried footsteps. My mother, Ruth, appeared in the hallway, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes narrowed as she took me in. "So, you've finally decided to grace us with your presence," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "Hello, Mother," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I hope it's okay that I'm here." "Of course it is," my father, Walter, chimed in from behind her, his voice soft and placating as always. "You're always welcome here, sweetheart." I caught the look my mother shot him, a mixture of annoyance and disapproval. It was a look I knew all too well. "I appreciate that, Dad," I said, setting my suitcase down. "I won't be staying long, just until I get back on my feet." "Oh." My mother raised an eyebrow. "And how long will that take?"
"A week?"
"A month? You know money doesn't grow on trees, Evelyn." I bit back a retort. If anyone knew about money not growing on trees, it was me. I'd been supporting this family for years, sending checks that seemed to disappear into a black hole of never-ending expenses. "I'm still working, Mom," I explained, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I can contribute to the household expenses while I'm here." Clara snorted from her perch on the stairs. "How generous of you, MS. Big shot creative director." I ignored her, focusing instead on my parents. "I just need some time to figure things out after the divorce." At the mention of my failed marriage, my mother's face softened slightly. "Well, I suppose we can make room for you. Your old bedroom is still available." "Thank you," I said, picking up my suitcase. "I'll just go get settled in." As I made my way up the stairs, I heard my mother's voice, barely above a whisper. "Walter, we need to talk about this. With Evelyn here, maybe we can finally get our finances sorted out." I paused, my hand on the banister. There was something in her tone that set alarm bells ringing in my head. Not now, Ruth. My father hushed her. Let's just be glad she's home. I continued up the stairs, my mind racing. What did they mean by getting their finances sorted out? I'd been sending them money regularly, more than enough to cover their expenses. Where was it all going? As I reached the landing, I caught sight of Clara slipping into her room, her phone pressed to her ear. Yeah, she's here. I heard her say in a low voice. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. I froze, my heart pounding. Who was she talking to? And what exactly was she planning to take care of? Standing there in the hallway of my childhood home, I suddenly felt like a stranger in a house full of secrets. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a web of deceit that would unravel my entire world. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Clara's hushed phone conversation and my parents' whispers about finances gnawed at me. I needed answers, and I knew just where to start. The next morning, I cornered Clara in the kitchen. She was lounging at the table, scrolling through her phone, a half-eaten piece of toast forgotten beside her. We need to talk, I said, my voice tight with barely contained anger. Clara looked up, her eyes narrowing. About what? About the money you've been sending to Caleb. The color drained from her face, but she quickly recovered, plastering on a look of innocence. I don't know what you're talking about. Cut the crap, Clara. I heard you on the phone last night. What's going on? She sighed, setting her phone down.
Fine.
Yes, I've been helping Caleb. Someone had to. My jaw clenched. And why, exactly, did my ex-husband need your help? Because you left him high and dry. Clara snapped. Do you have any idea how much he's struggling? His business is failing, Evelyn. He needed help, and you weren't there to give it. I felt like I'd been slapped. I wasn't there. I supported him for years while he chased his dreams. I put my own career on hold. And when things got tough, he's the one who walked out on me. Clara rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You were always so focused on your precious career. Caleb just needed a little support, a little understanding. And you were more than happy to provide that, weren't you? I spat, the pieces falling into place. How long has this been going on, Clara? Were you helping him before we even divorced? She had the decency to look ashamed for a moment, but it quickly passed. Someone had to be there for him. You certainly weren't. I laughed bitterly. And I suppose that someone just had to be my little sister? Tell me, Clara, where did you get the money to help poor, struggling Caleb? She squirmed in her seat. That's none of your business. It is when I'm the one who's been supporting this family for years, I shot back. Have you been using the money I send to help my ex-husband? Clara's silence was all the answer I needed. You're unbelievable, I said, shaking my head. Both of you. I've been killing myself to keep this family afloat, and you've been funneling money to Caleb behind my back. It's not like that, Clara protested weakly. He really needed help, Evelyn. You're just being selfish. Selfish. I felt my temper flare. I've given everything to this family, Clara. Everything. And this is how you repay me. She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor.
You don't understand.
Caleb Dash. I don't want to hear it. I cut her off. I'm done. Done with your excuses. Done with being taken for granted. If Caleb needs help so badly, you can support him yourself from now on. I turned to leave, but Clara's next words stopped me cold. It wasn't just me, you know. Mom and Dad have been helping him too. I spun back around, my heart pounding. What? Clara's eyes widened, realizing she'd said too much. I shouldn't have said that. But it was too late. The floodgates had opened, and I knew I was only scratching the surface of this betrayal. My own parents, conspiring with my ex-husband behind my back? How deep did this deception go? I stormed out of the kitchen, my mind reeling. I needed answers, and I needed them now. But more than that, I needed a plan. If my entire family had been plotting against me, using me for my money, while supporting the man who broke my heart, then it was time to take matters into my own hands. As I climbed the stairs to my room, a cold determination settled over me. They wanted to play games?
Fine.
But they were about to learn that I could play too. And I played to win. The revelation that my parents were also involved in this web of deceit left me reeling. I needed proof, something concrete to confront them with. That night, I waited until the house was quiet before sneaking into my father's study. My hands shook as I rifled through his desk drawers, searching for any evidence of their betrayal. In the bottom drawer, hidden beneath a stack of old magazines, I found a folder labeled CR, Investments. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside were bank statements, receipts, and handwritten notes detailing money transfers to Caleb's business. The amounts were staggering, far more than the family support I'd been providing. I felt sick as I realized the extent of their deception. A creaking floorboard made me freeze. I quickly replaced the folder and slipped out of the study, narrowly avoiding my mother in the hallway. The next morning, I cornered my parents in the kitchen. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained anger. My mother looked up from her coffee, feigning innocence. "About what, dear?" "About the money you've been funneling to Caleb behind my back." The color drained from my father's face, but my mother's expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said coldly. "Don't lie to me," I snapped, slamming my hand on the table. "I saw the folder, Mom. I know everything." My father slumped in his chair, defeated. "Evelyn, we can explain dash." "Explain what?" I cut him off. "How you've been stealing from me to support my ex-husband. How you've been lying to my face for months, maybe years." "We were trying to help," my mother insisted. "Caleb's business was struggling, and we couldn't just stand by and watch it fail." I laughed bitterly. "And it never occurred to you to ask me? To be honest with me?" "You wouldn't have understood," she said dismissively. "You were always so focused on your career, you couldn't see how much Caleb needed our support." "Our support?" I echoed incredulously. "You mean my money? Money I earned while you all sat here, doing nothing." My father at least had the decency to look ashamed. "We thought we were doing the right thing, sweetheart. Caleb is family dash." "Was family?" I corrected him sharply. "He stopped being family the moment he walked out on me. But I guess that didn't matter to any of you, did it?" The silence that followed was deafening. I looked from my mother's defiant face to my father's guilty one, feeling a chasm open up between us. "I'm done," I said quietly. "No more money, no more support. You want to help Caleb so badly? You can do it without me." My mother's eyes widened in panic. "Evelyn, be reasonable. We need that money. The mortgage, the bills dash." "Not my problem anymore," I cut her off. "You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." I turned to leave, but my father's voice stopped me. "Where will you go?" I paused at the doorway, not bothering to look back. "Away from here. Away from all of you." As I climbed the stairs to pack my things, I heard my parents arguing in hushed, frantic tones. Part of me felt guilty for leaving them in the lurch, but a larger part felt a grim satisfaction. They'd made their bed. Now they could lie in it. In my room, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Hello," a gruff voice answered. "Grandma Nina? It's Evelyn. I need your help." There was a pause, then a chuckle. Well, about time you called, girl. What kind of trouble are you in?" As I explained the situation, I could almost hear the wheels turning in my grandmother's head. When I finished, she let out a long, low whistle. "Sounds like you've got yourself in quite a pickle," she said. "But don't you worry. Your old grandma's got an idea that'll set things right." As Nina outlined her plan, a slow smile spread across my face. It was time to teach my family a lesson they'd never forget. The drive to Savannah was long and tense, my knuckles white on the steering wheel as I replayed my conversation with Grandma Nina. Her plan was audacious, bordering on cruel, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like justice. Nina's restaurant, the Savannah Spoon, stood proud on a bustling corner, its weathered brick facade a testament to decades of success. As I pushed open the heavy wooden door, the aroma of spices and sizzling meat enveloped me. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," Nina's gravelly voice called out from behind the counter. She emerged, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her steel-gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. "You look like hell, girl." I managed a weak smile.
Thanks, Grandma.
It's been a rough few days. She nodded, her sharp eyes taking in every detail of my disheveled appearance. Come on back. We've got some plotting to do. In the cramped office behind the kitchen, I spilled everything. The betrayal, the lies, the years of manipulation. Nina listened silently, her face growing stormier with each revelation. When I finished, she let out a long, low whistle. Those ungrateful vultures. I always knew Ruth had a mean streak, but this is something else. I don't know what to do, Grandma, I admitted, feeling tears prick at my eyes. I can't just let them get away with it, but they're still my family. Nina's eyes glinted with a mix of mischief and determination. Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs, girl. It's time they learned the value of hard work and honesty. She outlined her plan in detail, selling the family home, bringing everyone to work in the restaurant, teaching them the meaning of real labor. It was harsh, perhaps even cruel, but as she spoke, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. You think it'll work? I asked, a glimmer of hope kindling in my chest. Nina grinned, a fierce expression that reminded me of her reputation as the toughest restaurateur in Savannah. Oh, it'll work all right. By the time I'm done with them, they'll either shape up or ship out. We spent the next few hours hammering out the details. I'd need to act fast before my family could drain any more money from my accounts. Nina made some calls, setting things in motion with a speed that left me breathless. As night fell, we sat on the restaurant's back porch, nursing glasses of sweet tea. The warm Savannah air was thick with a scent of jasmine and possibility. You know this won't be easy, right? Nina said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. They're going to fight you every step of the way. I nodded, steeling myself for the battle ahead. I know, but it's time they face the consequences of their actions. And maybe this will be the wake-up call they need. Nina reached over and squeezed my hand. You're stronger than you know, Evelyn. You've got more of me in you than any of them ever did. The next morning, I made the calls. To a realtor, to put the family home on the market. To my bank, to freeze the accounts I'd set up for my parents and Clara. And finally, to my mother, Evelyn. Her voice was wary, uncertain. Where are you? When are you coming home? I took a deep breath, Nina's reassuring presence beside me giving me strength. I'm not coming home, Mom. In fact, there won't be a home to come back to soon. What are you talking about? Panic edged into her tone. I'm selling the house, I said, my voice steady. And you, Dad, and Clara have a choice to make. You can either come to Savannah and work for Grandma Nina, learning what it means to earn your keep, or you can figure things out on your own. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When my mother finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. You can't do this. We're your family. You should have thought of that before you betrayed me, I replied, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. You have 1 week to decide. Choose wisely. As I hung up, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. For the first time in years, I saw not just Evelyn the provider, the dutiful daughter, but Evelyn the survivor. Evelyn the fighter. The game had changed. Now it was my turn to make the rules. The week that followed my ultimatum was a whirlwind of activity. I worked tirelessly with Nina to prepare for the potential arrival of my family, all while orchestrating the sale of our childhood home from afar. The realtor I'd hired was a shark, moving with ruthless efficiency to get the house on the market. My phone buzzed constantly with messages and calls from my family, each more desperate than the last. I ignored most of them, steeling myself against the emotional manipulation I knew would come. On the 5th day, I finally answered a call from my father. Evelyn, please, he pleaded, his voice cracking. You can't do this to us. This house. It's all we have. I closed my eyes, fighting back the wave of guilt that threatened to overwhelm me. No, Dad. It's all you have because you've been living off me for years. It's time for that to change. But where will we go? What about your mother's garden? Clara's dash. You have a choice. I cut him off, my voice firm. Come to Savannah and work, or figure it out on your own. Those are your only options now. The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "We'll come. God help us, we'll come." As I hung up, I caught Nina watching me from across the restaurant. She nodded approvingly, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. The next few days were a flurry of preparation. Nina cleared out an old storage room above the restaurant, transforming it into a makeshift apartment. I worked alongside her, scrubbing floors and assembling cheap furniture, my hands blistering from the unaccustomed labor. "This is just the beginning for them," Nina remarked as we hauled in a second-hand couch. "They think they've had it tough. They ain't seen nothing yet." On the day of their arrival, I stood outside the restaurant, my stomach churning with a mix of anticipation and dread. A taxi pulled up, and out stumbled my family, looking shell-shocked and disheveled. My mother was the first to speak, her eyes red-rimmed and accusing. "I hope you're happy, Evelyn. You've destroyed everything we've built." I met her gaze steadily.
No, Mom.
"You destroyed it when you chose to betray me. This is your chance to rebuild." Clara snorted, tossing her hair defiantly. "And what makes you think we'll play along with your little power trip?" Before I could respond, Nina emerged from the restaurant, her presence commanding instant attention. "Because, little girl," she growled, "if you don't, you'll find yourselves on the street faster than you can say, entitled brat. This isn't a game. This is your new reality." My father, looking older and more defeated than I'd ever seen him, stepped forward. "What do you want us to do?" Nina's smile was all teeth. "Oh, we got plenty for you to do. Walter, you'll be washing dishes. Ruth, you're on prep duty. And Clara, you get to wait tables." The look of horror on Clara's face was almost comical. "Wait tables? I don't know how to dash." "You'll learn," Nina cut her off. "Or you'll starve. Simple as that." As my family was herded into the restaurant, each looking more shell-shocked than the last, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and unease. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? To teach them a lesson, to make them understand the value of hard work and honesty. But as I watched them disappear into the kitchen, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a troubling question. At what cost? Nina's hand on my shoulder startled me out of my thoughts. "You did good, girl. Now comes the hard part." I nodded, squaring my shoulders. "I'm ready." As I followed her into the restaurant, the smell of spices and sizzling meat enveloping me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a new chapter of my life. One where the lines between justice and revenge, love and resentment, would blur in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The game had begun, and there was no turning back now. The Savannah spoon buzzed with the frenetic energy of the dinner rush. Amid the chaos, I watched my family stumble through their new roles, a mixture of satisfaction and unease churning in my gut. Clara, her hair frizzed and makeup smudged, fumbled with a tray of drinks. "Table 7, sweetie," Nina barked, her eyes sharp as she supervised the floor. Clara's lips tightened, but she said nothing, tottering towards the table in her unfamiliar heels. In the kitchen, the clash of pots and pans punctuated my father's muttered curses as he battled a mountain of dirty dishes. My mother, her perfectly manicured nails now hidden beneath food-stained gloves, chopped vegetables with a vengeance, each slice of her knife an accusation. "You gonna stand there all night, or are you gonna make yourself useful?" Nina's voice cut through my observations. I turned to find her holding out an apron, her eyebrow raised in challenge. Swallowing my pride, I tied on the apron and joined the fray. For the next few hours, I bussed tables, ran food, and mopped up spills, my body aching in ways I'd forgotten were possible. As the night wore on, the cracks in my family's facade began to show. Clara, overwhelmed by a particularly demanding table, snapped at a customer, her voice shrill with frustration. "If you don't like the service, maybe you should try cooking your own damn food." The restaurant fell silent, all eyes turning to our corner. Nina materialized like a storm cloud, her voice low and dangerous. "Take a break, Clara. Now." As Clara fled to the back, tears streaking her mascara, I caught my mother's eye across the room. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I remembered from childhood, worried, protective. But then her gaze hardened, and she turned away. The night crawled on, each minute an eternity of sore feet and frayed nerves. Just when I thought we'd made it through, disaster struck. A crash from the kitchen had us all running. We found my father on the floor, surrounded by shattered plates and splattered food. "I can't do this," he muttered, his hands shaking. "I'm not cut out for this kind of work." Nina surveyed the scene, her face unreadable. "Clean it up," she said finally. "All of you. Together." As we knelt on the cold tile, picking up shards of porcelain and soggy lettuce, I felt the weight of our shared humiliation. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? To see them brought low, to make them understand the value of hard work? But as I watched my mother's trembling hands and my father's defeated slump, I felt a pang of doubt. Was this justice, or had I gone too far? The restaurant closed at last, and we gathered in the empty dining room, exhausted and shell-shocked. Nina stood before us, her arms crossed. "Well," she said, her voice cutting through the silence, "I hope you all learned something tonight." Clara, her makeup a mess and her uniform stained, let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, we learned plenty. We learned that our dear sister is a vindictive by dash." "Enough." My mother's sharp voice surprised us all. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. "Is this what you wanted, Evelyn? To see us suffer? To punish us?" I met her gaze, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my chest. "I wanted you to understand. To see what it's like to work for something, instead of just taking and taking." "And, do you feel better now?" my father asked quietly. "Now that you've brought us low?" The question hung in the air, heavy with accusation and hurt. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Nina's hand on my shoulder startled me. "I think that's enough for tonight," she said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. "Go get some rest. Tomorrow's another day." As we trudged up to our cramped apartment above the restaurant, the weight of what I'd done settled over me like a shroud. I'd wanted justice, but at what cost? The lines between right and wrong, between punishment and cruelty, had blurred beyond recognition. Lying in my narrow bed, listening to the muffled sobs from the next room, I wondered if there was any coming back from this. If the bridges I'd burned could ever be rebuilt. Little did I know, the true test of our family's resilience was yet to come. The morning sun had barely crept over Savannah's historic skyline when I heard the commotion downstairs. Voices, raised and urgent, pulled me from my fitful sleep. I stumbled down the stairs, my heart racing, to find a scene I never expected. There, in the middle of the Savannah Spoon's dining room, stood Caleb. My ex-husband, the man I'd tried so hard to forget, was facing off against my grandmother Nina. My family huddled nearby, their faces a mix of shock and guilt. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, my voice cutting through the tension. Caleb turned to me, his eyes wide with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Evelyn, I can explain everything." Nina's hand on my arm stopped me from lashing out. "Let him talk, girl. You need to hear this." Over the next hour, as the early morning light filled the restaurant, Caleb unraveled a tale that shook me to my core. He spoke of manipulation, of lies whispered in his ear by my own parents, of how Ruth and Walter had convinced him that I was the reason for our financial troubles, that I was holding him back from success. "They told me you were siphoning money from our accounts," Caleb said, his voice thick with regret, "that you were planning to leave me high and dry." I was stupid enough to believe them. I turned to my parents, searching their faces for any sign of denial. But all I saw was shame. "Is this true?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My mother stepped forward, her eyes brimming with tears. "We thought we were protecting you, Evelyn. We saw how hard you were working, how much you were sacrificing for Caleb's dreams. We wanted you to have a better life. By destroying my marriage?" I spat, anger rising like bile in my throat. "We never meant for it to go this far," my father interjected, his voice weak. "We just wanted you to see that you deserved better." Clara, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. "I knew," she admitted, her voice small. "I knew what they were doing, and I went along with it. I thought I thought I was helping you too." The weight of their confessions pressed down on me, threatening to crush me. All this time, I thought I was the victim of their greed and manipulation. But the truth was far more complex, far more painful. Caleb's hand on my shoulder startled me. "I've been working to repay the debts, Evelyn. Every penny. I wanted to make things right, to show you that I wasn't the man they made me out to be." I looked into his eyes, searching for the man I'd once loved. And for the first time in years, I saw him, flawed but sincere. Nina's voice cut through my swirling thoughts. "Well, ain't this a fine mess?" she said, her tone sharp but not unkind. "Seems to me you've all got some serious soul-searching to do." She was right, of course. The truth lay before us, raw and uncomfortable. The lines between right and wrong, between victim and perpetrator, had blurred beyond recognition. I felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. Would I forgive? Could I forgive? The resentment I'd nursed for so long warred with a newfound understanding. I need some air," I managed, pushing past them all and out into the savannah morning. As I walked the cobblestone streets, my mind raced. I'd come here seeking justice, revenge even. But now, faced with the truth, I realized that the path forward wasn't clear-cut. Could I forgive my family for their misguided attempts to protect me? Could I trust Caleb again, knowing he'd been manipulated but had also doubted me? And perhaps most importantly, could I forgive myself for the pain I'd caused in my own quest for retribution? As the sun climbed higher in the sky, I found myself at a crossroads. The choice I made now would shape not just my future, but the future of my entire family. Redemption hung in the balance, fragile and uncertain. With a deep breath, I turned back towards the Savannah spoon. It was time to face the music, to confront the tangled web of love, betrayal, and misunderstanding that had brought us all to this point. Little did I know, the true test of our family's resilience was about to begin. As I pushed open the door to the Savannah spoon, the weight of expectation hung heavy in the air. My family stood where I'd left them, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and fear. Caleb lingered at the edge of the group, his eyes meeting mine with a silent plea. Nina's voice cut through the tension. "Well, girl, what's it gonna be?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I've done a lot of thinking," I began, my voice stronger than I felt. "We've all made mistakes. We've all hurt each other in ways we never intended." Clara stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I was jealous and selfish. I never stopped to think about how hard you were working, how much you were sacrificing for us." Her words, so unexpected, cracked something open inside me. I reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm sorry too, Clara. I should have seen how much you were struggling." My mother approached next, her usual composure crumbling. "We thought we were protecting you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But we were wrong. So terribly wrong." My father nodded, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Can you ever forgive us, Evelyn?" I looked at them, really looked at them, perhaps for the first time in years. I saw not the manipulators and users I'd painted them as, but flawed, human people who'd lost their way. "I think," I said slowly, "that forgiveness is something we're all going to have to work on, together." Caleb cleared his throat, drawing my attention. "Evelyn, I know I have no right to ask, but is there any chance we could start over? As friends?" I met his gaze, searching for the man I'd once loved. And while the romantic love was gone, I found something else, the possibility of a different kind of relationship, built on honesty and mutual respect. "I'd like that," I said softly. Nina's bark of laughter broke the emotional tension. "Well, ain't this touching? But don't think this means you're all off the hook. There's still work to be done." And work we did. Over the next few weeks, we threw ourselves into the restaurant with renewed vigor. Clara, to everyone's surprise, discovered a talent for customer service. My mother's organizational skills transformed the chaotic kitchen into a well-oiled machine. And my father, his confidence growing daily, became Nina's right-hand man in managing the books. As for me, I found a new balance. I continued my work as a creative director remotely, but I also carved out time to help at the restaurant. Watching my family grow, change, and support each other filled me with a pride I'd never known before. One evening, as we closed up shop, Nina pulled me aside. "You did good, girl," she said, her gruff voice tinged with warmth. "You took a broken family and helped forge it into something stronger." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. "We did it together," I replied. As I prepared to return to the city, my family gathered to see me off. There were hugs, tears, and promises to stay in touch. Promises I knew we'd keep this time. Caleb approached last, a small smile on his face. "Thank you," he said simply, "for giving us all a second chance." I nodded, feeling the last vestiges of resentment melt away. "Take care of yourself, Caleb." As I drove away from Savannah, I felt lighter, freer. The wounds of betrayal and misunderstanding were healing, replaced by a newfound appreciation for the complexities of family love. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But as I watched the city recede in my rearview mirror, I felt a surge of hope. We had weathered the storm together and emerged stronger for it. And whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them as a family, flawed, complicated, but ultimately united. As the sun set over the Georgia landscape, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, I smiled. This wasn't an ending, I realized. It was a new beginning, for all of us.